Under the heavy downpour, a man staggers and struggles to walk. He struggles to breathe with the sight of a lady like that of a mirage appearing before him. "Julia, please don't go!" The staggering man cries out, but he slips into a trash bin, and the sight is gone in a split second. Unfortunately, the girl is a mirage, cast up by his troubled mind, but all thoughts dash to the mud when his eyes fall on sinister shadows observing him, only about to make out their dark features from their glistening eyes. Backtrack to an hour ago, and the Moondance Diner is a mess from the wrath of rain against its roof and cars, coupled with the lightning that spreads its tentacles throughout the sky. A soft, feminine voice scurries into the kitchen, approaching a giant man who shows no mercy to the animal in his hold. A second later reveals a beautiful blondie with a fallen expression as she pleads with her boss for an advance payment. Meanwhile, his cold, impassive demeanor screams at her to turn and run for the hills, especially when she mentions her daughter. He gives her the shocker of a lifetime when he slams his hands on the counter with disturbing effort, but turns into a big crybaby, crying about her sick daughter Luna and cheating husband. Wearing a warm smile, she defends her husband against the bullets shot his way. However, after a little thought accompanied by a long sigh, he agrees to her pleas, though informs her of his last act of generosity. The blondie is greatly overjoyed and relieved, thinking of Luna's prescription for the month. Furthermore, he becomes a motivator in seconds, saying something about the aspire to perspire of the motivation course, ensuring she keeps a healthy mentality and happy household, but she knows better than to achieve all that without money. On her way out, she tells him to have a lovely night, but before she makes it past the door, he calls her attention to the food stain on her shirt. "Wait, Olivia." He screeches, making her check the stain out, and she opts to have a change of outfit when she remembers the possibility of bumping into Max. Shortly after, we see Olivia Moore taking a stroll back home when she comes upon a semi-conscious body. A bunch of questions run through her mind as she battles leaving. Nonetheless, she gets terribly shocked when she sees a livid crimson leaking out of him. Out of reflex, she reaches for him, concerns wearing every inch of her profile as she questions her concerns. The young man in despair stares at her with blurry eyes but catches her off guard when he grabs her wrist, making her properly straddle him, and then he begs her not to leave without him. Back in the apartment, Olivia Moore supports him, dragging him into her apartment. He bumps into the table, causing a piece of paper containing a note from Max to drop out of sight. He slumps on the couch, still reeling from the tingling pain of the wound, while she wonders what she is thinking to have brought a stranger home. But she gets defensive, knowing it inhumane to leave him to die when he desperately needs help. Slapping herself from her overzealous thoughts, she moves quickly, flicking open his buttons. She takes in the muscular sight before her, but flinches when she spots the cut. Olivia Moore finally comes to a resolution to contact the paramedics after observing how bad his situation is, and what happens next has us gasping, in shock. At that very moment, his eyes pop open, grabbing her to straddle him in quick movements, shocking her to the very bones. She curses at him while trying but failing to get away from his grasp. However, he tightens his grip, leaving her confused as the phone rings continuously until it is drops with reckless abandon. Locked in intense eye contact, she wonders where her control has dashed to, becoming fully aware of her willing body. Their faces inch closer, even as she takes in his handsome, muscular features while their hands become touchy. Her phone beeps with a birthday message, but that doesn't distract the needing duo just as they lock their mouths in a kiss. The sky thunders with a heavy downpour, which does nothing but intensify their accidental makeout session, ripping her clothes in a flick. Moving forward, something strange happens when we catch sight of bullets falling off from the wound. The macho gender gets lost in his thoughts, recalling a familiar voice that accused him of ending Julia's life as he stared at her lifeless form, and he instantly jolts back to reality with the name Julia, parting his lips. It's like a spell is broken as he fully becomes aware of his surroundings and the woman straddling him in such an immoral position. Wondering what had happened, he reflects on the earlier events of getting crashed into on his way home from a brief meeting. His driver was enraged, cursing and screaming. Meanwhile, he caught sight of Julia's ghost walking in an alley, and out of shared curiosity, he shadowed her. As the idiom, "curiosity kills the cat" goes, he ran into a bunch of thugs who launched at him. Unfortunately, defending himself got him shot severally, and returning to reality, he feels the sore spot already leaving a fading mark in its wake. Observing Olivia more closely, pulling her to himself and sniffing her in an almost desperate manner, even though he can't help but wonder why she smells so familiar, like Julia. Oliva heats red but stops him before he can continue his actions, trying to make something of the awkward situation that they are engulfed in. Moreover, in quick movements, he flips her onto her back, pinning her with an intense glare as he questions her identity and the reasons for her actions. Moving to a different location, we get a glimpse of the picture frame sitting prettily on the table, but soon enough, we also catch sight of a masculine body in a hot, steamy bath that has us on the edge of our seats. The redhead could pass for a demigod, and that is a fact he is completely ignorant of since he is submerged in thoughts of Olivia. A loud bang slams the door, followed by a scream of his name, Max, filling the air. He recognizes the voice as Olivia's as she bangs furiously on the door until the handle falls off with reckless abandon. Pumping with adrenaline, he rushes to the door, flinging it open to reveal a traumatized Oliva trembling, and he cradles her with a look of concern mixed with curiosity. She points in the direction of her apartment, and seconds later, we see the duo in her living room, which is now a madhouse. Unfortunately, the man from earlier has vanished, leaving her in awe. Sudden confusion kicks in as she begins wondering about the possibility of it all being a dream, but then again, she spots the blood smear on the couch from the position he laid earlier. Moving on, Max is highly concerned, suggesting they call the police, but she waves him off, expressing how fine she is, blaming the entire experience on the poor wind. Meanwhile, she knows better than to involve the police as it means missing work days in a row, especially after getting an advance from her boss. Max doesn't buy her explanation, taking a look around the madhouse, or so it seems, but he decides to let it slide since he isn't in any sort of relationship with her. Although he informs her to hint to him whenever anything goes wrong, and she has never been more grateful. However, before the redhead finally takes his leave, he asks Olivia Moore out for a date to the movies the coming weekend, although not after pleading with her for his choice of clothing, but she declines his offer after giving it little thought. He finally leaves her to her peace, and for the first time that night, she takes a deep breath when she slumps on the couch. Now, in the midst of all this drama, a shiny object catches her line of sight, and she observes the tiny piece, reflecting on the ugly experience and wondering how he must have escaped through the window, especially in his condition. Shifting to a different scene, Damian Brown sits on his king-size bed in the almost dark room, nursing his injuries when a voice echoes from the doorway. He questions where he has been, but the fading mark on display prompts him to discover the cause. Damian Brown simply explains what happened in the alley as if it's no big deal, but it doesn't bode well with his driver as he screams at him for his choice of location. Moreover, the recovering masculinity seems totally unfazed by his driver's mini display of tantrums, informing him of the recent hallucinations. The man in the suit starts a mini speech about the doctor's instructions, and how he can't abuse the medicine since that will only trigger migraines and hallucinations. He further advises him to cut his dosages in a way that will still make him live like a normal human being, but Damian Brown dishes a side comment about the maker of the medicines and the level at which he deteriorates. But hold up, you won't believe what happened next, beholding a live transformation of a human into a werewolf. At the same time, he reminds Russell of how dangerous they are. In an age in which werewolves can no longer exist alongside humans, there's only one reason they have been able to avoid getting locked up, and it's all thanks to the drug ISP instinct suppressant pill, made from wolfsbane. In the past, the plant was used to kill werewolves, but Damian Brown's father used that same property to formulate a liquid solution that can suppress the natural werewolf instincts, and while he was trying to refine the solution into a pill, he managed to develop a number of new drugs. Lo and behold, that's how the pharmaceutical company TerraCure was born. Flashing back to the awkward encounter from earlier, he observes the changes in his body, making him feel like his old self from before he started taking medication while squeezing the piece of cloth in his hand. He hands Russell the piece, giving him instructions to find the owner, as she is the key to a new formulation of the ISP drug. The discovery makes him supercharged as he sets out in search of the said person, but not after talking about a certain him. The next scene reveals the club in its climax moment as people gyrate to the rhythm of the song booming the building down. Shortly after, we catch sight of a sinister figure that could pass for a shadow, walking down the doorway with a scary confidence level. He calmly walks to the booth of a blondie named Silas, having the time of his life with a glass of beer. After saying something that sounds like a one-time warning, he descends on Silas, cracking his cheekbones with his fist. The blondie merely spits out the red liquid in his mouth, while the sinister man reminds him of his forsaken plans to take the life of his father and dear brother. However, Silas questions Turner's violence, teasing him about going through the stress only to hit him and act as if he's the one with the revenge plan on the Brown family. Getting infuriated by the blondie's world, he reminds him of his position as an immature help, instead of the wolf he thought him to be, and that is all that needs to be said to make him go nuts. He launches at Turner, but in return, the latter patronizes his display of masculinity, compelling him to tag along with him since there are just enough schemes to plan. The following night at the bubbling Moondance Diner, we see Olivia Moore on a call with Minsoon while she hurriedly gets ready for work. They chat a little bit about Luna and her whinings, but good grief, she sleeps peacefully beside Minsoon. Olivia Moore informs her of the shirt's fate from the past day, but immediately promises to get her another. Minsoon's dramatics are outstanding as she screeches, immediately pinning the misfortune on Max, but the blonde head is totally over her friend's gimmicks as she sighs, a long, deep one. The brunette further raises a conversation about the status of her relationship with Max, but she insists on the status being a platonic one, ending the call in the same vein after saying their goodbyes. Whew, our leading female sighs, thanking her heavens for granting her an easy escape from Minsoon's matchmaking schemes, even though she has no time for such thoughts. Rummaging through her bag after possibly glaring lasers into it for the longest second, only to grasp the hard metal, her heart beating unusually fast as she flashes back to the events of the past night. Moving forward, she slams the door locker with an unforeseen strength, in a bid to distract herself from the mess her thoughts are slowly becoming. At that very moment, the door to the diner swings open, revealing Silas and Turner striding inside like they own the place. They take in the empty booths, alas, selecting one for a quick sit-and-plan session. Turner hands over a file indicating the first target and also questioning his readiness to initiate the sacraments. But the blondie only laughs at his big game plans. Quite doubtful, he ensures that the entire process will go smoothly as planned, but his partner ignores his fears, describing their first victim. Silas confirms his suspicion of using him to make a beta, and Turner expands the horizon of his imagination, describing how unique the beta will be. However, he doesn't forget to tease him concerning his expression from beholding the last beta, and this takes the mood from 0 to 100, as Silas screams at him to zip his mouth, the diner thundering from him, slamming his fists so hard. Suddenly, he looks towards a door when a familiar scent breezes his nose, and in quick steps, he moves in the direction of that door. Flinging it open, he is startled by the lady before him, wondering what business he has with a human, just as he strides towards her. On the other hand, Olivia Moore is shocked by the male presence, screaming at him to go away, and even threatening to call the police. He brutally ignores her, caging her in between his hands, and searches his brain for a reason that has her smelling like Julia. That is, after he has done a great job of sniffing her. Wriggling furiously, she screams at him to let go of her, but a more intense smell breezes past his nose, which he recognizes as Damian Brown's. And just when you think the situation is about to break into a full-blown opera of despair, it actually does as Silas begins panting heavily like he's about to transform into something out of the ordinary. We are shocked to see Turner at the crime scene, even as he screams at his partner to get his act together, which, unfortunately, is too late as he already started transforming, judging by the color of his eyes. Quickly, he retrieves his gun, putting a bullet in his skull, and Olivia Moore watches in horror as his blood smears on her cheek and surrounding. Pondering the possibility of the blondie being feared dead, she jolts back, screaming at Turner to stay away, but he simply reaches her without much effort, wriggling the handkerchief on her face, and she gets lost in a trance. Nevertheless, a thunderous bang on the door jolts her to reality, and she gasps for breath, trying but failing to maintain her shock. Her boss pops in, inquiring about the reason for her absent-mindedness, but the traumatized lady simply recounts her experience, especially muttering something about guns and shots. She freezes looking around her to find everything intact like before, and she clutches her head when an intense headache strikes. Finding her display funny, he blames the migraine on too much sleep, but also informs her to put herself together as they have lots and lots of work to keep them busy through the night. Alas, Olivia Moore is left to her thoughts, which she reflects on, confusing her recent encounters with a dream as she sweats profusely. In another part of the city, a church located amongst bushes comes into view. Moving on, we are entirely shocked to see Turner in a priestly attire, as he carefully observes the bullets he had obtained from Olivia's keep. He ponders on the possibility of the almighty Damian Brown being shot, which confirms his health status as unwell, just as the rumors claim. Then again, he thinks about the messed up situation he had almost gotten himself in had he put an end to Silas, silencing him forever. However, he also wonders how the lady is connected to Damian Brown, making a mental note to look into her, but then, a loud voice echoes in the background, calling out to him. Quickly hiding the metallic piece and slipping back into his priestly mask, he questions Brother Andreas about his reason for stopping by the church on a Wednesday. A joyful Andreas spills the tea about inviting him to a play that he will be featuring as the lead character, scheduled for Saturday. Furthermore, he introduces the scriptwriter and Max takes the hint, properly introducing himself and patronizing his sermon. The young men offer a chat about their friendship, the priest only speaking when he questions Max's area of interest in his job as a reporter. The redhead speaks about running after celebrities, at the moment making the men share a quick laugh, and Andreas, already bored of their conversation, cuts into it. He gets back to persuading the priest, even making mention of the VIP seats had secured, but priest's answer remains as before, talking about his busy weekend schedule. Giving up, the young man walks away, bickering about a certain single hot mom that he had invited, turning different shades of red when he announces the status of their relationship as just friends who wish each other well, and Andreas makes the final joke as they exit the church, laughing hysterically. The next scene reveals Minsoon pestering Olivia Moore about her date, but Olivia Moore is lost in thought, still reeling over the dream that appears too terrifying to be true, and Minsoon screams at her, jolting her into awareness of the world around her. She brings Luna into her detective job, using the poor little child to snoop around her mom's dating life. Olivia Moore immediately replies to her daughter, letting her know that she is too preoccupied to be in a relationship, but Minsoon strides into her closet, coming back with a stunning outfit. Since the blonde head knows better than to stay in and wallow in the misery of her encounters, she refuses the dress from her friend after claiming it's too much. The brunette informs her of needing the too much to take things to the next level. Additionally, Minsoon questions her true feelings towards Max, drawing her into an imaginative trap of getting intimate with him. Her heart beats loud and fast, already knowing that a relationship with him won't be bad. The following day, we see Max in the TerraCure's CEO's office, looking around in awe as he awaits the time for his interview. A quick note states that Damian Brown is a pharmaceutical magnate who appears suddenly and captures everyone's attention. Rumors swirl around him. Some say he is the illegitimate child of a CEO from a pharmaceutical company, while others whisper about a scandalous affair with a high-profile figure. Recently, tabloids even claim he battles a drug addiction and suffers from a rare disease. This personal struggle reportedly fuels TerraCure's relentless pursuit of developing treatments for uncommon medical conditions. Max is obviously having a migraine merely thinking about his editors whining to dig up every dirt on him, wondering why the focus is on his private life rather than his company. Shortly after, we see Max conducting an interview with Damian Brown and his assistant, as he asks his next question. What's the focus of this year's conference? He questions and the nerdy assistant goes to answer the question, although the interviewer stops him, requesting Damian Brown to provide an answer to the question, given his intrinsic knowledge about drugs. Dark golden eyes flash his way as he bites out the question of the kind of drugs he is inquisitive about. Max is quite shocked at his response, as he thought him to be disoriented as the rumors claim. Damian Brown's the interview almost immediately, but Max is persistent in getting him to talk, thinking of a way to get his attention. In that instant, he questions the recent activity that might have piqued his interest, but the assistant does all he can to dissuade him from asking personal questions. Max further says something about his reader's interests that only irritates Damian further, as he screams at him to exit his office. The poor assistant does everything to push him out, which only makes Max a bit curious, even as he wonders if the rumors about his illness are true. Later that night, an SUV parks in front of a tall building as Russell steps out, although on a call with Damian Brown, who pleads with him to hurry while coughing into a handkerchief. Soon after, he pounds on a certain door with every strength he can get, and after some seconds, Munson peeks through the slightly ajar door. Ignoring the daggers, he glares at her. She questions his identity, but in swift movements, he flings the door open and pulls her to himself, then takes a long sniff of her smell. Minsun obviously doesn't find the display funny, as she screams at him to let go of her. Nevertheless, Russell is a bit confused, wondering why she smells the same but looks different. The brunette is clearly annoyed, inquiring about his reason for sniffing her, but he simply hints at John, who stands close by, to exit the building. She screams at their backs as they exit, cursing and wondering what has happened to mankind. The next scene reveals Max all suited up for his date as he knocks on Olivia's door, and instantly, Olivia Moore appears in the doorway, looking all dolled up and flushed as they compliment each other. She relates her worries concerning the dress, and he announces how gorgeously looking she is. Nevertheless, she rushes in to grab an umbrella due to the heavy rain brewing. Staring out the window, memories from a few nights back flood her memory, but suddenly, we see Julia running into the wild. Our curiosity heightens when we see a hand that happens to be Silas grabs her, pleading with her not to leave. In the nick of time, his hand shoots up from the spot Turner had buried him, the latter helping him to his feet as he welcome tees him back to Earth. Continuing from before, a bar comes into view, and we find our match-made couples sitting at the bar for a couple of drinks and conversations. Max apologizes for the disappointment that follows the night, and Olivia Moore, being so very understanding, waves him off, showing concern about his friend instead. Max seems quite uneasy at his friend's absence, which started 30 minutes earlier when he was told of Andreas's absence. Getting really concerned, she questions the need to look for him, although he plays it cool, recounting when he dozed off in the subway on their first meetup as pals. Olivia's interest is piqued, discovering the history they shared in New York when he served as a war correspondent and his friend a soldier. Furthermore, she questions how he ended up in the situation, and he briefly recounts his past, accompanied by Daddy's issues, which connects to his present life with his family, completely unaware of his whereabouts. Taking a deep breath, Olivia Moore relates to his experience, also recounting her past when he pries further. Showing little emotions, she recounts her childhood, making mention of the death of her parents at a very young age, which ignited her decision to become an adult and a parent as quickly as possible. She doesn't end there, also recounting the inner peace she felt when she met her husband and then Luna after some time later. Continuing from before, she voices how she had met her husband buried deep underground 8 months later after he had proposed to her. She talks about Luna's predicament, after being born prematurely with a terminal illness that is without cause, and also blaming herself for bringing a child into her dark world. The next scene reveals a lifeless body being butchered by a white werewolf when Turner calls out the name Silas. He screams at him to hold on, but transforms into the beast when he sees that Silas is completely nuts. Silas points out the lifeless body, seeking a way forward, and Turner informs him to patiently wait for 3 days, when the body will be taken to a morgue, making it a lot easier for them to access. Although Silas is exasperated with his Bible talks, he hears him out as he rambles about a werewolf rising on the 3rd day. However, Silas diverts the conversation to the lady from the diner, informing Turner to treat her matter with urgency, because her thoughts alone drive him to the brim of madness. Back in the bar, Olivia Moore basks in the deafening silence, hating herself for talking about her husband, and only then does she notice the ring on her finger, which makes the situation even more awkward. "Olivia," Max whispers, informing her of the wine smear sitting pretty on her lower jaw, and she slightly panics, turning a dangerous shade of red, but he offers to wipe it off. Now, in the midst of all this drama, they stay locked in each other's eyes, and her heart does a thing of its own when it begins to beat loud and fast. Breaking the eye contact, she decides to call it a night. Nevertheless, he covers her hand and squeezes reassuringly, voicing out their happiness as his priority, but she wonders if she really deserves happiness. Trying her best to remain calm, he whispers her name and she pecks at him in response, but carried away by the euphoria of the moment, she leans into his embrace and kisses him to her heart's content. After a few seconds of a breathless kiss that leaves them yearning for more, Olivia Moore informs him of her intentions to achieve something with him. However, a great deal of confusion flashes across his face, but soon he realizes what she implies, smiling at how lucky he is. The clattering of bottles reveals what she desperately needed to do. "Nice shot," he compliments her, also confirming his suspicion as she announces her race for bowling ever since she overheard her friends talking about it in middle school, simultaneously popping a drink open and handing it to. Olivia Moore admits to having never gone on a proper date, and guess what? He also admits to the fact, making mention of studying as a hindrance. Suddenly, she grabs his hand, suggesting they make a bet for the loser to grant the winner's wish, and that's all they need to do, to unleash the athlete within them. The duo plays hard until they are out of breath, and Olivia Moore falls to a chair, questioning Max's bowling skills since he can pass for a professional. Simultaneously putting her heels on, he announces that it's his first date bowling but has been bowling much since before, and she feigns a mock cry of being tricked, which only makes him smile even more. Watching him care for her leg, a sad smile briefly mars her face. Nonetheless, she brushes it away and asks what he intends to wish for. On the other hand, everything happening at the moment is a dream come true for him, and he questions what she would want him to wish for, cupping her face. The next scene reveals the soon-to-be couple in an intimate moment as he peppers her with unending kisses. Moving on, she stops him, talking about washing up due to sweats from the bowling, but then he suggests bathing alongside her, which makes her gasp with uncertainty. Max, not able to deal with uncertainties, suggests that they take things to the next level. Almost at the same time, her phone rings with Minsoon's call. The sweet moment is cut short when her friend informs her about Luna being in the ER due to some seizures, and shortly after, they are seen in the hospital, just as Olivia Moore demands what is happening to her daughter. Minsoon feels miserable at this point, as she explains to her friend what had led to her daughter's seizure, and about that time, the doctor announces she had just fallen asleep. He further explains the state of her illness and how difficult it could be for her to regain consciousness. Olivia Moore staggers due to shock as she buries her face in her hands and sobs for her daughter's pain. Moreover, Max suggests that Luna be sent abroad for treatments. The doctors simply let him know the impossibility of administering the treatments without being aware of the root cause, but this only enrages him as he enters into a heated banter with the doctor. The doctor makes mention of the treatment of rare diseases, and he flashes back to his interview with Damian Brown and his assistant, becoming suddenly calm. He guides her out of the room to share his ideas concerning his recent discovery. Fast track some days later, Max enlightens Olivia Moore about the TerraCure pharmaceutical company, informing her of the company's conference meeting that starts at noon. He promises to reserve her a spot to ask questions, and she has never been grateful enough. However, she almost breaks down, beating herself for being the worst mother on earth and wishing she had done more rather than going on a date when her daughter needed her the most. On the other hand, Max ensures that she doesn't blame herself, taking it upon himself to save Luna, regardless of the medical bills, making her break down even more. The next scene reveals her in the woods, as she catches sight of a wolf hovering about her, and due to instinct, she runs through the bus path for safety, although wondering why she acts strangely. Suddenly, she spots Damian Brown at the far end, instantly recognizing him, and she jolts awake. Her line of thoughts a mess as she wonders why he appears in her dream yet again. Back in the TerraCure pharmaceutical company, Damian Brown and Russell share cold pleasantries, and the latter explains the reason he could not accomplish the mission of finding the mystery woman. He blames him for giving random shirt pieces and not so detailed descriptions. Meanwhile, Damian Brown battles giving up as they both step into the filled elevator. Chatters and side comments of his name fill the air, and when Olivia Moore spots him, she flashes back to the night but knocks herself out of every thought that has to do with that night. However, she can't neglect how fast her heart beats, and at that very moment, Damian Brown sniffs her, immediately looking around for her. Unfortunately, the elevator dings open as people exit, disrupting his search. He orders the cancellation of the press conference, announcing his intent to find her since she is likely to be around the vicinity. Russell suggests that the search be done afterward, to tame the rumors in circulation, which he concurs with, but offers him strict warnings to search the entire building and bring her to him, while he takes care of the conference. Amidst the chattering, Olivia Moore is wrapped in the thoughts of the man from the other night, comparing the striking resemblance between them when a call from a friend of his comes through. He excuses himself immediately, ignoring the conference that has just commenced, and to her greatest surprise, Damian Brown speaks to the public, the man from the elevator, and the man from a few nights ago. He continues his speech, bearing good news about the hope of TerraCure to those suffering from rare disease cases, creating a world with hope to live as normal humans. Meanwhile, she watches the screen with hope, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. What? Max screams from the shock of the news about Tommy's whereabouts. The caller informs him of his friend's body lying cold in the morgue, and at this point, he can't get himself together, flinging his phone in a manner that shatters the screen of his poor car. Continuing from before, the conference is quite rowdy, as the press burdens him with loads of questions about TerraCure and its so-called hope. Feeling extremely dizzy, he musters all the strength he can find to get through the conference, already wishing Olivia Moore was by his side to cure his illness. Russell hints to him of her absence from a far end, and he takes it upon himself to find her, especially as he had caught her scent earlier on. Unable to hold himself any longer, announces the TerraCure's lead scientist who will be in charge of answering their question, exiting the stage at once. Side comments fill the air about his health, the rumors only increasing with each passing second. Olivia Moore wonders if he is leaving, taking it upon herself to speak to him before he leaves, but when she gets to his office, she is blocked by a security personnel who demands her entry pass. She informs him of her friend, who happens to be with it, wondering where Max must have run to, and in the nick of time, Russell instructs another to supply some essentials to Damian Brown. Adding to this, he listens to the conversation between the man and Olivia, as she begs for a few minutes with Damian Brown, immediately taking note of her blonde hair. The next scene reveals Damian Brown in his car, sweating profusely as the pain ricochets through his body, and you wouldn't believe what happens next. A body that looks like Olivia's is thrown next to him, and even as her screams are ignored by the masculinities, Russell informs Damian Brownto to quit blaming him, since he has done his part. At the mention of Damian Brown, she stills, immediately turning to him and wondering what he's doing there, however. He notices the drastic change in his system as everything returns to normal as it did the very first time they had met. He leans into her, pinning her with a stare that makes it hard for her to move, but she gets a grip of herself, expressing her intentions of wanting to meet with him. As expected, the paparazzi trailing after them can pass up for sneaky bastards as they mount the car with their cameras and microphones. "Is she your girlfriend?" one of the men questions as Russell gets infuriated by them, merely giving a warning about his rusty driving skills before he slams the engines. The scary paparazzi come fully prepared as they get into their cars, brewing for a chase. Meanwhile, Olivia Moore apologizes for the improper position and talks about the illness that threatens to end the life of her daughter. She begs him to include her in his company's clinical trials, but he becomes the bearer of bad news, informing her of the filled slot. Desperately, she begs him for a chance, and he finally agrees, although only if she will cover the cost of $30 million. Knowing fully well her financial state, she begs to do every other thing that he requires of her, but unfortunately, the information-thirst cameramen block his path, making Russell stop his escape schemes, and you wouldn't believe what happens next. He steps out of the car and gives her exactly 3 minutes to win him over. Continuing from before, we catch a glimpse of Damian Brown and Olivia, hiding behind a block while the cameramen look around, wondering where they have disappeared. They make mention of Olivia Moore being a major scoop, mostly because she has a new face in his world, while the duo eavesdrops on their conversation. He inquires if she's done with trying to convince him, and she bites back, stating the 3 minutes isn't up. Coming to a firm resolution, she announces to pay back the money for the rest of her life, but he calmly reminds her of the impossibility, even though she works till the day she dies. Not giving up to his smart mouth, she grabs his shirt and voices something about saving his life, her eyes begging him to reconsider, but the devil's spawn simply informs her of the remaining minutes left. Getting infuriated, she tells him to state his wants, bearing herself to him. Hypothetically. He is surprised by her guts, making a comment about her body that makes her flip in anger. Notwithstanding, he grabs her waist and whispers about the determination flaming in her eyes. In quick movements, he hoists her over his shoulders and ignores her girly screams and gasps, but he simply informs her to hold tight, and just when you think you've seen it all, he does one of those superhero jumps that gets them to the rooftop, except his cape appears to be missing. Olivia Moore is the definition of awe, as her head still reels from what she had just experienced. Russell scolds him for being a bit late, but Damian Brown counters him with a suitable reply, and with that, they make their way to the airport. Not after she had made a fool of herself by mentioning the plane tickets. Finally, on the plane, she beats herself up for ever mentioning the plane tickets, but he disrupts her thoughts, confirming her identity and her willingness to do anything for her daughter. She concurs, but sets a limit to what she can do, which makes him offer her a deal about seeing him. But hold up. Before her mind can wander to the nasty part of her brain, he includes not romantically, but also buttressing his intentions of seeing her quite often on a regular basis. She calls bullshit on his suggestion, and he reminds her of her fraudulent promises to sell her soul and body. Nevertheless, she bites back at him, accusing him of trying to trick her into seeing him. However, he reminds her of her daughter, which makes her rethink her decision, and finally she agrees to the deal. In another part of the city, Max makes his way to the morgue, where an attendant attends to him, and soon after, Tommy's body is revealed to him. He informs him about his time of death, which tallies with the very day he went missing, sometimes on Saturday evening, also regretting his effortless action in not searching for his friend. Moving on, he questions the wound on his neck, and the attendant informs him of the damage a much more dangerous animal has caused him, inquiring about the possibility of Tommy keeping a dangerous pet. Max simply waves him off, informing him of Tommy's lazy habit of taking care of anything, including himself. A tear falls from his eyes, placing his palms upon Tommy's, and you wouldn't believe what happens next. Max is welcomed into a new level of horror when the dead body grabs his hand, causing him to jolt back in fear. Pointing to Tommy's hand, he accuses the lifeless body part of grabbing him, and in turn, the attendant blames it on a post-mortem spasm that happens from time to time. Max seems sure of what he just experienced, but the other informs him to allow the dead to rest in peace as he shows him out of the morgue. Days later, we see Olivia, Minsoon, and Luna stroll into a gigantic hospital room that could pass for a hotel suite, just like Minsoon had said. Little Luna questions what she means by a hotel suite, but the lady simply tells her that it's a room filled with candy and laughs out hysterically. Olivia Moore bites at her to refrain from confusing her little brain, although she is finally happy that her daughter gets the treatment she deserves. The brunette screeches when she sees the famous Damian Brown, who just happens to be the talk of the city at all times and seasons. The ladies confirm their familiarity with the name as he talks to a doctor, possibly about Luna. Obviously, after the ugly encounter with the cameraman from the other day, Olivia Moore isn't completely shocked to see a blurred picture of her and Damian Brown splashed across all blogs and tabloids. Literally anything readable. Minsun guesses the blondie in his car is his girlfriend, but Olivia Moore counters her, not accepting the lies, which gives her away as the brunette figures that it's her friend's pictures splashed across the entire internet. Olivia Moore simply tells her to check back later for an explanation when Dr. Allen strides into the room, introducing himself as Allen, who is completely in charge of Luna's treatment. Olivia Moore also introduces herself, even though she can't help but notice Demaine Brown's low demeanor. However, Dr. Allen invites little Luna for her first checkup, and the little girl does everything in her power to ensure her mother tags along. Just as they are about to take their leave, Damian Brown demands an audience with Olivia Moore, and she tries but fails to use Luna as an excuse to avoid him. When Min-sun steps in for her and she glares daggers at her only friend, he strides in the direction of his office and she follows suit. Meanwhile, Min-soon watches them leave, getting suspicious at their sudden bond, also catching sight of Russell, trying to remember where she had seen the face. Following behind him, Olivia Moore inquires where he plans on taking her, but Demaine Brown is lost in thoughts, wondering why his migraine persists even in her presence. Just in time, Max strides into the hall, thinking of how surreal Luna's situation is, especially as his suggestion has gotten them far to an extent. Olivia's voice echoes in the hallway, and he makes an abrupt stop, stepping in the direction of her voice, but you wouldn't believe what happens next. Shock and betrayal flash in his eyes as he beholds the lady of his dreams locking her mouth with the freaking CEO of TerraCure, or so we think. Prior to the kissing scene of Make Believe, Damian Brown questions the possibility of some changes occurring in her body in the past few days, knowing deep down that it's the only reasonable explanation as to why he keeps having incessant migraines. Suddenly, he slumps on her, and she panics, questioning if he's all right, but he keeps repeating the question from earlier, even as his body vibrates like a guitar string in motion. Her answers aren't helpful to him, and as a result, he releases her to go to her daughter, but out of concern, she opts to call a doctor. He orders her to leave his presence, and she stomps out angrily, screaming at him to suit himself, and he drops to the floor when his legs are unable to carry his body any longer. Moving forward, he battles calling Russell, but even that proves futile as his hand drops to the floor. On the other hand, Olivia Moore still reels in anger, after he had the guts to get angry at her for being generous. Pondering the real reason he wanted to see her, she hopes he gets well even though he can be a real jerk sometimes. Fortunately, she bumps into a nurse, laying a complaint about a person feeling unwell, and quickly points her in Demaine Brown's direction. With a clear conscience, she continues her journey to Luna's treatment session but stops abruptly when she spots Max waiting in the hallway. "When did you get here?" she questions, but he ignores her, questioning her whereabouts in the past few minutes. However, she gives him a vague response about doing something, also offering him a cup of coffee. They settle down to discuss the recent happenings with Luna and TerraCure trial sessions. Max inquires how she got through to Damian Brown, but she shares in the surprise, voicing how lucky she is for such an opportunity to cross her way. He voices out his thoughts, clearly doubtful of the opportunity, and she questions what he means, not appreciating his tone and line of discussion. Moreover, he apologizes, admitting to rambling when exhausted. Switching the line of discussion, she questions his whereabouts on the day of the conference, and he breaks the news about Tommy's death, rendering her shocked to her bones. He admits to being devastated, further stating that he was mauled by a wild animal, and she wonders how something like that would take place in the heart of the city. He bears the same concern, but what really baffles him more is what he beheld earlier with Olivia Moore and Damian Brown, although knowing better than to bring up the conversation. The following scene reveals Turner standing beside a body, just as Silas strides into the room with a new level of arrogance. He questions Silas's reason for coming in late, hoping his excuse won't be related to the lady from the diner, but as expected, Silas confesses to dropping by the diner every single day. Unfortunately, he hasn't seen her ever since the incident, wondering if she had quit her job because of him. But then again, Turner refocuses his mind on the important matters, revealing Tommy's cold body. He screams at Turner's failed attempt yet again, and suddenly, something unusual happens. Silas feels a surge of power within him as the lying body turns into a werewolf. And well, Turner celebrates their success and his first beta in his lifetime. Adding to this, Silas beta charges at Turner, but before he uses him for dinner, Silas transforms into his beast form, stopping his beta's attempt. Turner shows concern for his beta, but Silas cares less as he revels in the surge of power. Turner makes a side comment about the wolf recognizing his master, questioning how it feels to be an alpha, and informing of the significant boost in strength that only happens when he makes more betas. Silas puts an end to his blabbing, expressing his distrust, although he looks forward to where it leads. "It's a monster!" Yet another person screams, and Silas only revels in the great timing as he feasts on his dinner, paying deaf ears to his pleas. Damian Brown has already gotten home. He's resting on his couch in the living room, and there is Russell walking in. Russell is thanking the nurse lady that called him earlier to bring him home, and Damian Brown asks him in question who that was. Then he calls her name, Olivia Moore, and then Damian Brown is kind of impressed, but he's not showing it off in his reaction. Anyways, Russell goes ahead to suggest canceling the upcoming conference, but Damian Brown declines, saying he is going to try to make it and it shouldn't be canceled. Damian Brown tries to sit upwards, but the side effect of the drugs is getting the best of him. Moving on, Max and Olivia Moore are packing up a little stuff for Luna. She picks up a few things and puts them in the bag. Max picks up a doll and asks if it is going to be of any help. She nods and collects the doll. She proceeds to tell the story behind that particular doll and why it's so precious to Luna, but then again, she just keeps quiet and then Max holds her hands to reassure her and make her feel comfortable enough to speak up to him. She is about telling the story of how Luna had her first seizure when they hear a knock on the door. Knock knock. Max walks towards the door to go see who that is. As soon as he opens the door, he sees Damian Brown. Instead, he is shocked. He asks Damian Brown what he's here for, and he replies, "To see Mrs. Olivia Moore. Is she home?" he asks. Max is pissed because who comes to see someone around this time? He tells Damian Brownto to say whatever he wants to say at the door, but Damian Brown refuses to do so. Instead, he questions Max why he is at Olivia's place. Then Olivia Moore steps forward. She invites him inside because the atmosphere is kind of tense. Max is really pissed. You can see that in his body movement. He wonders how they've known themselves this much for him to stop by her place anytime he feels like it. That pisses him off the more, so he tells Olivia Moore that he's gonna go and they can meet up at the hospital. Olivia Moore tries to explain to him, but he just stumbled off. Damian Brown isn't even helping at this point because he's the cause of what just happened. Olivia Moore tells Damian Brown never to show up at her house unexpectedly again. He agrees and asks how she proposes for them to meet. Well, they're going to figure that out. Olivia Moore looks around in confusion, wondering what the papers are for. She questions him about their need, and he informs her of the contract they are to be signing, which explicitly outlines everything contained in the contract, although she wonders if any of that is necessary. However, a line in the contract specifically catches her attention, as she reads aloud, "Olivia Moore will comply with all instructions issued. B.Y. Damian Brown?" But he simply tells her that it is what it is, being an extreme jerk by offering her a pen to sign the contract. She refuses to sign it but looks in the direction of a teddy bear that reminds her of her daughter, and taking a deep breath, she questions if he will do right by her daughter, and he reassures her. Immediately, she snatches the pen from his grip and signs the contract. Nevertheless, he strikes up a conversation about doing something with him, hence the contract is up and running. Olivia Moore is clearly fed up with his unending requests, slamming her poor hand on the innocent table just to drive her point. He reminds her of the first day they met, tossing his suit jacket on the nearest handle, also questioning where their actions had happened, just as he flips open his buttons. She questions his intentions, and he simply lays out his intent to retrace everything that happened that night. He sits in the same position and grabs her, observing the shirt she wears. And guess what? She changes into the torn change and settles beside him. The duo stares at themselves in an awkward moment, given his instruction, but he finds it strange as he wonders why his body remains the same as it was in the hospital, also wondering about the lack of rainfall. Shifting to a different scene, we see Max all best up about Olivia's sudden bond with Damian Brown, thinking of informing her how dangerous he is, but he simply blames himself for suggesting Terracure for Luna's illness. A call comes through his phone and he picks up but is suddenly infuriated when the caller informs him of Tommy's missing body. The latter apologizes for their inefficiency, further informing him of the measures taken to locate it. Max lets him know that he is on his way, but the caller waves him off. However, he flashes back to Olivia's relationship with Damian Brown, concluding to see for himself what is going on. Back at her apartment, Olivia Moore shivers when Damian Brown pulls out a gun, handing it to her to shoot him, even though she refuses. She expresses her disappointment in him, returning the weapon to the tabletop, but Damian Brown wishes she would act accordingly, since it's the only way to ascertain her powers. He reaches for the weapon, and when she refuses, he informs her to heal him as she had done before, but Olivia Moore stares at him dumbfounded, wondering what he rambles about. We are shocked when he aims and Olivia Moore goes to stop him, and fortunately, she stops, as they drop to the couch, just as it had happened a few nights back. "Are you insane?" she screams at him, inquiring what he's playing at, but he tells her how unnecessary her heroic display is. She pays deaf ears to his joke, pointing at the fact that he could have hurt himself. He offers a response about being not so fragile, further inquiring why she cares so much when she could easily blackmail him. He forms a headline that could make waves on the internet, joking at how sensational the headline is that will sit pretty on her friend's newspaper, dragging Max into the pool of what-ifs. She questions what he takes her for, revealing a piece of herself that might seem hard to believe. She expresses her inability to sit and watch a suffering human, confessing it to be part of the things raising Luna has taught her. Assuming a sitting position, she exposes the reason her daughter had made it this far in the very first place, pointing out the kindness of others. And because of this, she practices the habit of giving back, though it's quite difficult. Furthermore, she expresses the irrelevance of his title, stating the fact that she helped him simply because he was hurt, even though she blames him for regretting her actions, unable to hold back her tears at this point. Confusion etches his features, but before he plays the dumb card, she blames him for disrespecting her, questioning if the inclusion of her daughter in the trials had offended him. However, she doesn't drop the subject, suggesting that it has to do with the woman named Julia, shocking him this time around. She voices how she had taken note of the name the first day they had met, inquiring who she is and her business with Julia, but the series of questions doesn't end there, as she questions a lot of whys. Suddenly, Julia's ghost stares at him and her, his golden eyes shining through the dark, as he locks eyes with her. Julia looks down at a sobbing Olivia, even as tears stream down her cheeks. Nevertheless, one thing's for sure, which is the striking resemblance between Julia and Olivia. In fact, they could pass for the perfect picture of a mother and daughter. Meanwhile, Damian Brown is completely stunned at everything happening all at once, dropping her to the couch and expressing the need to end things for the night as he stands to get dressed. She questions what he means, but his vagueness is outstanding, simply stating everything they had agreed to, ignoring her entirety, even though she calls after him. Confused, she wonders what has happened at the last minute, but in the grand scheme of bad timing, her phone just happens to ring at the very minute. Hoping it's Damian Brown, she scrambles to connect with the caller. However, her boss from the Moondance Diner greets her as they settle into a healthy, comfortable discussion. The good boss asks about her daughter's health, and she lets him know just how good she is. Continuing the discussion, Olivia Moore apologizes for quitting her job so unexpectedly, but he waves her off, ensuring she takes good care of herself and her daughter, which makes her eyes glisten with unshed tears. Finally exiting the building, Russell seeks answers to his questions, but Damian Brown unfortunately doesn't satisfy his hunger, also breaking the news of finding an alternative solution. Russell's expression is the definition of confusion when he reminds his boss about the stakeholders meeting, scheduled for the following, but Damian simply announces his decision to avoid using humans for experiments. The suited blonde head questions the possibility of him being concerned about her, and he flinches, the question lingering in his mind. The next scene reveals Silas going through blogs simultaneously, guzzling down his drink, and suddenly, he comes across a recent blog making waves on the internet. One that contains a picture of Olivia Moore and Damian Brown. He wonders who the blonde lady is, hoping it isn't the same one from the diner since she is also a blondie. Moreover, he wonders why the thoughts drive him to the brim of madness, also making a mental note to stop by the diner the following day. The following morning, Olivia Moore heads to the Terracure's reception, asking to see Damian Brown, but the receptionist informs her of the impossibility, especially as she doesn't have an appointment scheduled. The latter also informs her that he is out of the office but wouldn't tell his location, although she suggests taking a message. Cupping her head, Olivia Moore wonders what to do, knowing the very fact that he won't want to lay his eyes on her, judging by their encounter from the past day. She thinks about her dearest Luna, making a decision to change his mind if she has any plans of saving her daughter at all, and with that, she voices her intent of waiting till he returns from his journey. In another part of the city, we see our male lead in a cemetery, probably about to pay his respects but to a loved one. "Hi, Julia," he mutters. He voices being in some kind of problem lately, like detecting her scent on a woman he had never met before, adding that being near eases his migraine also. He even started confusing Olivia with Julia. His thoughts fizzle back to the past when she had accepted him for his true nature, which was also the reason he had fallen for her. This led him to an obsession with creating drugs to suppress his werewolf instincts so that she wouldn't be in harm's way. Damian wanted Julia forever. Sadly, after her passing, he continued with his research, believing that was the only way to keep her memory alive. Amidst his inner battle, we are shocked at his plans to use Olivia to perfect his pill, but wonder why he finds himself hesitating. Moving on, Russell comes from behind, informing him Olivia is outside his office, waiting for him. Also, he remarks her unwillingness to give up, rendering Damian a minute speechless. Breaking the silence, he orders Russell to find out the location of the diner her friend works at, and the latter seizes the opportunity to question if the ISP experiment is back on. However, our male lead reveals it's still on hold, and this prompts his assistant to question his reason for going to the diner. He simply declares he owes Olivia a debt. Moments later, the bustling diner comes into view. At a corner, we see the trio in a conversation, even as Min-soon reconsiders his offer to make her Luna's babysitter. On the other hand, Russell's thought is a mess, wondering why the experiment can't go on since receives treatments. Moreover, this is a dream come true for Min-soon, as she gladly declares to be paid 3 times her current salary. Damian mutters something about paying her tenfolds, and this sends her to the brink of insanity as she screams the name of her creator. However, Damian tells her not to spill their little secret to Olivia, and this makes her a tad curious, but eases off when he states his plans to tell her himself. In the midst of the chatter, guess what? Silas sees Damian and wonders what business he has with the diner. His thoughts reveal his intentions of stopping by the diner for Olivia's sake, but somewhat appreciates the coincidence. Suddenly, chills run down Damian's spine and he glances toward the window. At that moment, the window shatters, and immediately, he protects Min-soon from the wrath of the glasses. Familiarizing with the smells of the intruder, Silas reveals himself, inquiring what he is doing in the diner. Nevertheless, Damian warns him to stop due to the watcher around, but the intruder lunges at him, simultaneously screaming he shouldn't tell him what to do. At that moment, he shoves Min-soon against Russell, determined to face and probably beat Silas to nothing. The tension intensifies, and Damian warns Silas to back off, rubbing it in his face that he isn't a match for him and nothing can change that. However, Silas is determined to prove to Damian just how much has changed. As expected, Damian beats the shit out of him, holding him to surrender as he applauds his improved strength. He hints at the position he holds in the family as his older brother and head of the family. However, before Silas fires a comeback, some watchers recognize Damian, taking a photo of him and making a run for their dear lives. "Russell," Damian barks, and the blondie voices he's on it, going after them. Without warning, Silas claws at him, catching him unawares. In the following scene, a car speeds off and the car watchers from the diner are in awe, expressing their plans to bid the photo out to the press. Suddenly, their car screeches to a stop and the passenger Prince backs at the driver to drive responsibly, and the latter points at the wolf staring right at them. No, scratch that, the wolf coming right at them. Back at the diner, Damien clutches his injured arm, just as Silas tries to regain lost breath. His pendant falls to the ground, and he recalls what Turner told him concerning keeping his cool, already loathing himself for losing his cool. Furthermore, he warns his brother to keep his distance, but Damien reminds him that he bears the Brown surname, and they will always be willing to receive him with open hands. Still, Silas is adamant, accusing him of being the sole reason for leaving the family. Threatening him, he tells him to enjoy his position as the head while lasts, revealing his intentions to dethrone and end his life. Once again, the Earth's peace is restored and Damien is left to his thoughts. He wonders what happened to his younger brother, reeling in his renewed strength. Suddenly, his phone rings, and on the first pick, his secretary breaks the news about Olivia's refusal to head home, at least until she has seen him. Fast forward an hour later, Damien strides into TerraCure Pharmaceutical, coming across Olivia's sleeping frame at a corner. He wonders if she had actually waited for him all through the day, and a mumble of Luna escapes her lips. After a hesitant moment, he carries her, recalling Silas's revenge scheme and the possibility of her being caught in the crossfire. Realization strikes, and he draws a conclusion to end all arrangements with her, even though that will delay the development of the new ISP. The following morning, Russell interrupts Damien's chat with his secretary, emphasizing the need to call off the stakeholders meeting. Confused, Damien questions what on earth he is talking about this time around. However, Russell flashes his screen, announcing the incident at the diner on the front page news. The shock on Damien's face is way too obvious, and he loathes the headache that accompanies it. Preparation of the stakeholders meeting is in full swing. Russell, however, tries to convince Damien to call it off, since it would only worsen looming scandal. Still, Damien remains adamant, and the blondie wonders aloud what happens if he collapses on stage. Our male lead explains his reason for not calling it off, and Russell suggests he brings Olivia over, just in case something happens. Meanwhile, Olivia stands in front of Luna's room, feeling a bit sad over not having a sit-down with Damien. She can't help the eerie feeling running through her veins when she recalls she had fallen asleep in front of his office, but now wonders she awakes in Luna's room. "Olivia," Max calls out, zapping her out of her sea of thoughts, and she inquires what business he has there. He spills his intentions to talk to her concerning something important, and she's all ears, suggesting they sit. "What's going on between you and Damien?" he questions, shocking her to the bones. Additionally, he mentions Damien visiting her late at night and wrapping his arms around her, hoping it counts for some evidence. However, she quickly explains the situation with him, almost unconscious, and indicates his reason for visiting her late at night was for Luna's sake. Yet, she confesses to wishing things were like he had imagined, almost breaking down at the thought of Damien removing Luna from the trials and avoiding her guts. Feeling sad for her, he holds her hand reassuringly, but drops a bombshell. He warns her about Damien, voicing how dangerous he is, and this throws Olivia off the edge. In the midst of the looming chaos, Min-sun appears from absolutely nowhere and calls bullshit on everything Max had just said. She announces she witnessed the entire incident, accusing the thug Silas of attacking Damien out of the blues. Olivia is in awe, even as she demands to know his business at the diner, and that's when Luna spills his plans to hire her as Luna's babysitter. She adds that Luna will need someone to look after her, also adding the salary raise. Just then, realization strikes, remembering his exact words to keep their little secret from Olivia, but Olivia is out of this world as she reconfirms what Min-sun said about Luna's treatment. Moving forward, Olivia slumps in relief, simultaneously wondering why he changed his mind. She declares her need to see him immediately, but Max informs her of the stakeholders meeting currency going on and offers to take her later in the day. Nevertheless, she is adamant and voices her intention to wait until he's done. In the next scene, the moderator declares the commencement of the meeting. We are not surprised to see Russell and Damien in a friendly banter before the latter is invited to the stage, despite his friend's warnings. Up on the stage, Damien's uneasiness is way too obvious. As he clutches his head, the dizziness takes over. However, the bright lights of cameras and unending questions from the press do nothing to help the uneasy feeling. Russell springs up to his feet on seeing how bad it gets, and Damien, on the other hand, is about to lose control. The blondie dashes towards his boss in a bid to maintain the situation, whispering that he gets a hold of himself. Yet, his condition only worsens, as his wolf teeth start sprouting out. In the nick of time, Olivia slams the door open, revealing herself for the world to see. She dashes towards him, slumping before him and asking if he's all right. Suddenly, he can breathe again, feeling somewhat okay. Meanwhile, Olivia ponders why she can't seem to get him off her mind, their heartbeats syncing in oneness. Something deep down her gut tells her that he needs help, and she's the only one who can offer that help. At that moment, Russell interrupts the connection, questioning his well-being. He gives him a positive reply, and, in the same vein, orders him to take Olivia to his office. However, our male lead can't seem to think straight about how Olivia saved the situation, flooding his mind, as he finally comes to terms with who she is. As Olivia and Russell walk out, the information-thirsty journalists make an effort to go after her, but once again, Damien takes charge like nothing ever happened. Back in the office, Olivia reads the headlines following Damien's health condition about a rare disease, and piecing two and two together, she traces it back to his migraines. The office door bursts open in a second. Damien's profile fills the entrance, and immediately, she demands to know how he feels, and he renders a positive reply, thanking her even. Surprised at his reply, she rejects his compliment, instantly shifting the conversation to the proposition he offered Min-soon when he already planned on pulling her daughter off the trial list. However, he firmly assures her that Luna will continue with her treatment, even while the contract has been cancelled. Getting intrigued, she inquires about the reason he changed his heart, but his thoughts answer the question, referring to her selfless act from earlier and what she had said some nights ago. He clasps his hands, preparing to tell the biggest lie of the century, although partly true. He states how unsafe she is with him, which results in him canceling the contract, but once again, he reassures her about her daughter's treatments, informing her to consider it his way of returning her kindness. Okay, people, right now, Olivia is in a daze as she stares at him with her green pool, a tint of red staining her cheeks, but before she falls too deep, she springs up to her feet and says her bye. Meanwhile, Damien dissuades her, mentioning the thirsty reporters, but she cuts him off with an urgent need to prepare dinner for her daughter, and with that, she exits the office, ignoring his calls. Shortly after, our leading blondie settles in a corner, silently loathing herself for burning bright red when she repeats her words from nights ago. However, she reels in the thought of his concerns about her when two reporters come into sight, expressing their pain about how slippery the mystery blonde is. They get into a little squabble about her hair color, but he uses Olivia, whose cover has been blown, to describe the mystery blonde. The mystery, already having enough drama for the day, strolls in the opposite direction, and that's when they realize who she is. Shifting to a new scene, we see Max at it with his boss, who insists on him writing something relating to Damien's secret flame, rather than his illness that people don't care about. Max believes that they stick to highlights that will directly affect the stock market, but the bald man mentions something about people loving the hell out of entertainment rather than boring business talks. He suggests that they dig into Olivia's life, but he refuses, stating the fact that the article is being printed out as they speak. Mr. Baldness threatens to fire, but he is already drowned in his thoughts, reflecting on how close they were, also hating his guts for not having the willpower to interrupt them. Nevertheless, Mr. Baldness says something about an outlet publishing a follow-up article about the entire fiasco, and this zaps him out of his thoughts when he scans through the article that exposes Olivia being a family member to one of Taracure's patients. He also wonders how the information got leaked. As the reporters camp outside the building looking for any source of information, Olivia puts Luna to bed, and a sudden vibration of her phone catches her off guard. Max's voice fills the entire room as he fills her in on the reporter's obsession with her, which might affect Luna's treatment process. He further instructs her not to leave the hospital for the moment, also letting her know that he is willing to assist in any way that he, but she, rejects his offer. The redhead pleads with her to let him assist her, and finally, she agrees. Ending the call at once, Max breathes a sigh of relief, although already scared of losing her if he doesn't do so much for her. The following day, Russell makes his way to the Terracure building, engaging with Damien, who glares daggers at the reporters camping outside the building. Russell praises him for his wise decision to address the public about his illness, judging by the fact that his alleged drug use is gradually losing relevance. Damien makes a snarky comment, just as Russell raises his spirit to conquer and rule, or whatever. These so-called pests, disguised in the form of reporters, flood and bombard him with questions, although they know better than to block his path. Meanwhile, Damien takes the walk of pride and indifference as he strolls into the building. However, a question about Olivia's relative being one of Terracure's patients gets his attention, even though his expression remains indifferent. He wonders how they had gotten hold of the information, mentally picturing Max as one of the suspects who might have leaked the information. Inside the building, Russell can't help but question how the reporters know jack shit about Olivia. Nevertheless, Damien announces the possibility of having a rat as a worker, deciding to move Olivia and Luna to his penthouse. Speaking of the devil in Damien's books, we see Max and Olivia discussing when the raging CEO slams the door wide open, sending dangerous glares to the redhead. Quite surprised, Olivia questions his business with the side of the building, but he ignores her, instructing her to stand behind him. Nonetheless, we trust Max to never get intimidated by the power-drunken Damien Brown, as he questions what his intentions are. Unfazed, Damien questions his knowledge of the scandalous articles his newspaper publishes, flashing samples from his phone. The redhead browses through them, knowing fully well that it's the doing of his editor. Pressing further, he accuses him of leaking information about Olivia, also questioning how much he was offered. At this point, Max feels so disrespected that Olivia defends him, mentioning the fact she had gotten into an elevator with some reporters. However, Damien pays deaf ears to her explanations, instructing Russell to make the area inaccessible to unauthorized personnel, which is anyone not directly involved with Luna's treatment. Max is a furious mess as he screams at Damien, making mention of everything that she will need, but like always, he cuts him off, opting to arrange someone for the domestics. Olivia, who is tired of their back and forth, tells Max that she's fine, but he refuses to believe her, mentioning all the things that show she isn't. Unwavering, he suggests that they quietly exit the hospital using the back door, and Damien displays a show of masculinity, immediately grabbing her due to reflex, and offers her the penthouse option. In a manipulative tone, he explains everything she stands to gain by taking his option, also explaining the impossible state she will fix Max if the information of their friendship goes out. Olivia decides not to be the cause of his suffering, since he has already done more than enough for her. She takes in a fast breath and appreciates Max for his help so far, but lets him know that she's in capable hands. Damien doesn't entertain more conversation, spinning on his heels, dragging Olivia with him as she offers the redhead a sympathetic goodbye. Max is irritated, watching the way and manner he pushes her around, but is more concerned about her letting him exert such power over her unless there is more to the situation than she is letting on. He ponders harder. Moments later, we see our leading female having a much-needed alone time, even as she huffs in disbelief over her unbelievable reality. She wraps her head around how complicated things have gotten and seeks solutions from nowhere in particular. As if her life isn't unfair enough, the TV roars to life about her relationship with Damien and a patient under his care, and all she does is stare in shock, wondering if she is the topic of discussion. She wraps her head over the lies told against them when the TV switches off, and only then does she realize his presence. Damien assures her that her identity remains a secret, but she goes to worry about him. Moving on, Damien informs her to give up worrying about him. Yet, she expresses her feelings over the accusations laid against me, mostly as she is the one who pleaded for his help with her daughter. Glaring at her, he questions the need to act foolish for his sake, but gosh, Olivia is so stubborn, countering him and picking up her phone to call Max, muttering words about making an anonymous clarification. Sniffing at her determination, he snatches the phone from her and cajoles her into looking out for herself, since he will be fine. Additionally, he reminds her of their agreement to keep her reporter friend at arm's length, and she goes to say something, even though she can't make any words. He beckons on her to forget about her reality and prepare for her guest. Confusion graces her pretty profile, but at just the right time, the sound of a child's voice fills the atmosphere, catching her attention. "Mommy!" little Luna screams as Russell guides her in, and at this point, she forgets her reality and dashes to her daughter, embracing the whole of her. She questions how she had gotten to the location, and Luna relays the doctor's words about spending the day with her. Olivia is filled with appreciation when she holds Damien's gaze. The next scene reveals the mother and daughter having a good time as they have their baths. Luna shows her mom the woolly hat made of foams, and Olivia praises her creativity. She also engages her in a discussion concerning the best part of her day. The youngling describes the steak experience, commenting on how different it was. Meanwhile, Olivia drools about it on the inside but maintains her cool on the outside. Luna also talks about her fun experience in the car, which Olivia is happy to hear about, of course, but her expression dims at the knowledge of her daughter feeling stuck behind the hospital walls. Internally, she expresses how glad she felt when Luna was initially admitted. But now, her heart feels heavy because she isn't getting any better. Still in her thoughts, she remembers loathing Damien for trying to cancel the contract with her but recalls his actions from earlier. Tired of her rumbling thoughts and emotions, she drops her head to her knees, completely oblivious to the child in need of her mother's attention. She decides to reserve a little faith in him since he is trying to be considerate of her, or so she thinks. Knock knock. She hits the slightly open door and calls out to him, informing him about a sleeping Luna who should be heading back to the hospital. Walking into the room, she catches a glimpse of the medical devices on the experiment table. Nevertheless, a voice from behind catches her off guard, inquiring what business she has in his room, and she goes to reply to him but freezes when she sees him, her eyes running the length of his body. She spins her head immediately, burning bright red. She extends her gratitude for hosting them, and he gladly receives it. Surprisingly, he apologizes for being a major jackass towards her, specifically mentioning the part where he wanted her to injure him. Engaging in further discussions, he confesses to acting desperate for a cause, using her and Luna as an example, which made him put her to bed when she had fallen asleep in his office, completely unable to face her. Shocked, she confirms all he just said, hoping they are all lies, but unfortunately, he renders an apology, hoping she isn't upset. Moving forward, she settles beside him, after denying ever being upset, and she starts her speech about being the one chasing him and being helpless if he rejects her. He counters her immediately, reminding her of the contract he signed just to keep seeing her. His words strike a nerve, and she clenches her hand to hide the emotion. Wasting no time, she seizes the opportunity to inquire about his reason for wanting to see her, and he spills the tea about feeling at ease around her, also inquiring about her familiarity with such emotions. But then, Olivia, on the other end, feels quite the opposite, since her heartbeat only rises to a dangerous level when he is around her. Unable to handle the emotions coursing through her, she clears her throat and confesses to feeling such on their first encounter, since she does not just kiss any man on the first encounter. Surprisingly, he shares the same belief, even though she seems to be in doubt. Nonetheless, he questions the reason he would lie about such. The radio silence is deafening when she doesn't reply, which makes them burst into a laughing fit. Damien is swooped in just by staring at her, even though he knows better than to get more entangled with her, but his body does the exact opposite, as he inches closer to her, brushing some strands of blonde behind her ear. Continuing from before, their heartbeats become relatively loud even to their hearing as Damien inches closer to her mouth. Something strikes him, instantly making him withdraw his advances and apologize to her, and hurt flashes across her profile even as she stares at him speechless. "I honestly can't figure you out," she exclaims, giving a speech about the contract fiasco and the fact he pushes her away but reaches out to her at the same time. Remembering the penthouse offer from earlier, Too tired to handle his insolence, she inquires his reason for lurking around and, probably for the millionth time now, he apologizes for his behavior. He admits to being a complete mess in her presence, though voicing his intent on putting a stop to his insolence. Feeling sorry, she becomes the voice of reason, talking about honesty and all that. She expresses her feelings about how lonely he is, probably due to the fact he doesn't have anybody to confide in, which better explains his reason for being so reserved and aloof. She goes on and on regarding how good she thinks he is, finally offering herself as his therapist since he already feels at ease around her. She starts to apologize for her incessant rumblings, hence she hasn't been what she preaches, especially since meeting him. But guess what? He allays her fears as he begins his epistle about her personality, highlighting instances where she displayed true selflessness even when the situation became extremely challenging. Internally, he expresses fear of being separated from her. Meanwhile, Olivia gets flushed after all he said about her, and his heart begins beating. So loud this time around. Staring at her with shocking intensity, he mutters her name, simultaneously inching close to her face, too close for comfort. He says something about embracing their messed up selves and engulfs her lips, unable to hold himself any longer. Continuing from before, butterflies flutter in our bellies as we catch sight of our favorite characters in their moment. Damien peppers her with kisses, removing his shirt at the same time, and that is enough cue as they go all intimate with each other. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a sinister empty building comes into view, and we are shocked to see a wolf feasting on flesh we'd rather stay oblivious to. Silas, on the other hand, is enraged by the disappearance of every article containing news about Olivia. He is certain Damien took her away from the diner, just like he did with Julia, and vows to unalive him and every other Brown family existence as a deafening howl fills the night. Max is the definition of restlessness, tapping endlessly on his computer, trying to piece together the news of disappearing bodies, insignificant lives vanishing all over the city. A strange feeling engulfs his chest as he wonders why Olivia hasn't reached out to him, swearing to find out if her involvement with Damien will put her in harm's way. Now, in the midst of all this drama unfolding across the city, Damien and Olivia continue to enjoy a fulfilling time. "Mr. Brown?" she calls out, but he corrects her, asking her to call him by his first name, which she does, as soft pants and pleasure-filled sounds echo through the room. Later that night, she feels a tongue lounging on her flesh, and she wakes up to behold a wolf glaring at her. But before she can scream, she jolts awake. "Phew, WW," she exhales, still processing the odd choice of dream. She steals a quick glance at Damien's sculpted back, still reeling from how real it all felt. Snapping back to reality, she rakes a hand through her hair and wonders how she ended up in Damien's bed, of all places. As he turns slightly in his sleep, she flinches and pretends to still be asleep. Damien finally sits up after a long stretch, his gaze drifting to her bare back. Quietly, he pulls the covers over her. But of course, her alarm chooses Time's moment to go off. Pretending to wake just then, Olivia locks eyes with him, her green gaze crashing into his golden one. Awkward tension floods the room as they scoot apart, creating a noticeable gap between them. He casually asks about her night, but Olivia is too wrapped in thoughts of Time's last night to respond properly, her face turning an even deeper shade of red. Realizing how far they've gone, she quickly brings up how poorly timed their relationship is, citing the need to check on Luna. Before she leaves the room, though, she asks for some comfy clothes. The next scene opens with the trio enjoying a delicious breakfast. Luna announces she's finished eating, but Olivia is mentally miles away, wondering why Damien seems so unaffected by everything that happened. She blames it on her own tendency to overthink, but continues to overthink it anyway. Luna suddenly calls for her attention, cradling her mother's face and asking if she's okay. Olivia smiles warmly, engaging her daughter in conversation. Of course, Luna doesn't disappoint accusing her mom of overfeeding her. Olivia apologizes on behalf of world peace and excuses herself to fetch Luna's medications. That reminder triggers Damien's own thoughts about his medication. Oddly, he feels lighter than usual. He wonders if spending the night with Olivia has something to do with it. Still, he refrains from jumping to conclusions after all. He doesn't know what might happen if he stops taking them. But one thought sticks. He may never want to let Olivia out of his sight again. His train of thought is cut off by Luna's voice. She asks him about his health, comparing it to her own illness, and he confirms it. He opens up about his sad childhood, and she immediately relates. With a somber face, she mentions her wish to visit an amusement park. A spark lights up in his eyes, and he promises her anything she wants. Olivia returns to find them whispering. She notes the brightness in Luna's eyes as the girl nods and seals their secret with a pinky promise. Suspicious, Olivia asks what they're whispering about. Luna dramatically declares it's a Time secret. Just then, the sharp click of high heels cuts through the moment. A chic brunette struts up to the door and rings the bell. Olivia watches as Damien walks over to greet her and they converse at a distance. From where she stands, Olivia is drowning in another overthinking spiral. The woman looks fancy, stylish, confident, and they seem close, judging by their body language. Trying to shake off any thoughts about Damien, Olivia focuses on Luna's trip back to the hospital. But Luna refuses to move, deeply invested in the book she's reading. Moments later, Damien calls Olivia over and explains that the woman Sarah was invited for a reason. Confused, Olivia states her intention to return to the hospital, but Damien urges her to stay, aware that the reporters are still on the lookout for her. Olivia refuses Sarah's help, insisting she can take care of herself, but Damien pushes back, and Sarah takes the hint, inviting Olivia into the dressing room to get her measurements. Clearly irritated, Olivia storms past Damien, who casually tells her to see him when he returns. She doesn't even dignify him with a response. Back in the dressing room, Sarah pries into her relationship with Damien, seeking to know if they are romantically involved, but she simply states that they are acquaintances, even though Sarah doesn't buy it. She smells Damien's odor all over her, but Olivia's voice cuts through her thoughts, voicing her observation about Sarah and Damien's close relationship. Sarah chuckles and accuses her of lacking self-awareness, making a snarky comment about personal shoppers, girlfriends, and whatnot. Furthermore, she apologizes for the late introduction, formally introducing herself as Damien's cousin, and this shocks her since she clearly misunderstood their relationship. The conversation persists, with Sarah questioning her naivety about the brewing relationship, and Olivia replying with a hint of defense since he hasn't asked her on a date. Inasmuch as Sarah loves her cousin, she swears he is naive even though he masks it by playing cool. Tapping her phone, she announces her successfully sent measurement and hurries her to go prepare. Shifting to a different location, the trio are seated in the showroom of a luxurious brand, gawking at the models doing their thing. Olivia tries to hide her excitement, which makes her 3 times darker than the normal shade of red, while Luna squeals joyfully with reckless abandon. Sarah enjoys the look on their faces, but proceeds to the next course of action, which is inquiring about her favorite brand. The blondie confesses to knowing nothing about brands, as she mentally tries to guess the price of an item. Sarah shows her a sample outfit, urging her to try it on, and the party starts as she tries on some of the outfits. Back in the comfort of the penthouse, Sarah commends her for being a lavish spender, which technically, Olivia isn't, though she is informed that in Sarah's dictionary, pretty and buy it are greatly similar, although she now realizes this. The personal shopper also repeats Damien's exact words to buy her whatever she likes, and this only makes her grow softer towards him. Later that night, Damien and Russell stroll into his living room when his phone chimes with notifications from Sarah. She sent him some pictures of his new fantasy, but only the picture taken with Luna amuses him more, and Russell can't help but get suspicious when he sees his boss smiling for the millionth time. Olivia, who is lurking in a corner, calls out to him, and on looking up, something called desire shines through his eyes as he takes in her new look. She expresses her discomfort with the outfit, asking him something similar, but he doesn't reply as his entire thought is fixated on her. Calling out to him again, he returns to reality, trying but failing to put on an indifferent expression. However, he compliments her, also taking note of the sweet scent he sniffs from her. It strikes him that she doesn't smell like Julia, wondering when the switch took place. Additionally, Olivia states her intentions to undress, but he stops her, offering to take her out, even though the expression on her face gives away the question she asks. He ensures she doesn't waste her outfit, also making mention of the scarce reporters at the hour. Still, he opts to rent a place for them or whatever tickles her fancy. A certain youngling comes into view, suggesting they visit the amusement park, and all efforts she makes to put her daughter to bed appear useless, as Luna insists on playing the princess going for rides. Damien contacts the venue, announcing the coming of the doctor, all in a bid to soothe Olivia's worries, mentioning the promise he made to Luna when she tries to talk him out of it. Fast track to the park, Luna happily runs to a booth, while Olivia looks around, still in awe at Damien renting an entire park. Following her daughter into the booth, she questions the little child concerning the promise he had made to her, and she spills everything she had told him about growing up lonely, which has resulted in him fulfilling her dream of visiting the amusement park. However, she spills that it is a deal he was willing to fulfill if only she listens to the doctor, and Olivia stares at him with a pitiful look. Furthermore, she does something unexpected, running towards him and grabbing his hand to join them in the swing. He willingly follows them, and they have a fun-filled night, even though at one point, he gets a little bit nauseous. Stepping off the swing, she mouths her observation about his demeanor, but he waves her off, voicing how fine he is. Still, Olivia thinks that he isn't good with rides, though she doesn't say. Meanwhile, he knows fully well that he must have sniffed something. She offers him a handkerchief to wipe his sweaty face, which he takes with gratitude, but seizes the opportunity to apologize for the way he had left earlier, ignoring the fact she was upset. She knows it isn't his fault, but before she can come up with a reply, Luna runs up to her with tears. The doctor advises that Luna takes a break from her adventure, but Luna, on the other hand, insists on playing the ride, ignoring her mother's pleas to find another fun activity. Damien steps in as a savior, pointing at a game that immediately intrigues the child. He guides her on how to play the game, and shortly after, they all shout in victory as the balloon bursts into pieces and he compliments her good work. Luna is too excited, hugging Damien's big stature while suggesting that her mom play one more time to win the teddy. She refuses, but he assures her, and with renewed energy, she targets the balloon. However, he stands behind her intending to show her the ropes, but she feels flutters explode in her stomach while he takes in her scent. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a man drags his injured body from his crashed car, and as he cries for help, a wolf jumps out of nowhere and feasts on the poor soul. Although something catches our sight, the battered man's ID, which happens to be a worker at Terracure just when you think you've seen the last of Silas. The night slowly comes to a wrap when we see the lovebirds, However, Luna sleeps so soundly on Damien's arm while they talk about how worn out she is. She chuckles, pointing to the Mickey Mouse band on his hair, and he makes a comment about Luna insisting he keeps it on, which only makes her laugh even more. She accuses him of taking things too seriously, but he only leans into her, suggesting she helps him take off the band, and a moment of silence passes as they stare at each other. Feeling grateful, she extends her gratitude for the fulfilling night, especially what it meant for Luna. Damien, on the other hand, can't help but sniff the scent, even as he pieces 1 and 2 together, figuring that her powers are at full manifestation whenever she's in a good mood, finally recalling why it remained dormant when he tried to force it out of her. Knowing how helpful the information is for the project, he reaches for his phone to contact the research director at TerraCure, nevertheless, chooses not to ruin the mood, focusing his entire attention on her. The following day reveals Minsoon at a feast, fulfilling her day's dream as Olivia urges her to take her time savoring the delicacies. The brunette teases her regarding her choice of words and outfit, saying something about being the lady in charge, which Olivia counters, of course, after turning a dark shade of red. She pries further, asking about the Damien situation, but she doesn't exactly give her a straight reply, and that's all she needs to squeal in excitement, repeating what she has been saying from the onset. Once again, we trust Olivia to shut her up, playing the "I will leave when it's all over" card, and the joyous expression on Minsoon's face drops. She inquires what she's going on about, and the blondie simply informs her about the article Damien had taken down, starving the public of major news in TerraCure. Furthermore, Olivia repeats what Damien had said about leaving too early, which puts a mischievous spark on Minsoon's face as she analyzes what Damien had meant, listing all the things he had done for her in the past few days. Making sense of everything her friend has said, she decides to question his true intentions. Immediately, her phone buzzes with a picture of her admiring the amusement park, and that is all she needs to zoom into her thoughts, replaying the moment. Flashing back to the park, she questions if Damien had unknowingly taken her picture, also asking to see what he took. She stared at the picture with mixed feelings, finally complimenting it, but his comment about viewing her as the picture rang a bell upstairs. Back in reality, she shoots a quick text to him, inquiring when he will be back home, and he replies immediately, informing her that he is on his way. Shortly after, he strolls inside the house and replies to her shocked expression, admitting to leaving the office immediately after he got the message. She scolds him for taking it too seriously, but he replies curtly with an indifferent expression. Nevertheless, she cuts to the chase, telling him about the scandal that has blown off, suggesting she moves out of the penthouse. Feeling uncomfortable, he inquires if she has a problem, which she says no, and then he suggests she stays for her daughter's sake, stating the fact about reporters on the lookout for new gist, and the difficulty in going back and forth with her daughter. Bearing out her chest, she questions if she isn't a constituent of a nuisance, but he shocks her, confessing how better he feels since her arrival. Quite intrigued to know why, she spills how comfortable she feels around him, bringing back the memories of their past discussion. For that reason, she agrees to stay a bit longer, asking for the keys to her apartment just in case she needs whatever. On the other hand, we are shocked to see Russell eavesdrop on their conversation, wearing a dismayed look. Moments later, the mother and daughter walk into their room, which now contains all the stuff from their former apartment, and Luna squeals with excitement, while Olivia is lost in wonderment. Damien makes his way to the room, breaking the news about moving their stuff at dawn. He also informs her to get used to the penthouse, taking it as her home when she tries to question his goodness. Meanwhile, Olivia's mind is a battleground, wondering if she should get used to his unending goodness, although feeling kind of bad for getting into his space. Minsun's words from earlier threaten to surface, but she pushes them behind her mind when her phone rings with the name Max, flashing on the screen, stealing her attention entirely. Excusing herself, she answers the call, exchanging pleasantries, but the panic in his voice raises her curiosity. He raises an alarm about calling the police for the sake of her house, which seems broken judging from the empty space. Smiling at his oblivion, she informs him of what Damien has done, and this makes him seize his rumbling as he questions the reason. She says something about being watched and keeping a low profile, and he can't help but wonder if he is going to ever let her go. After a brief silence, he suggests that they meet somewhere close to the penthouse since they haven't had any conversation in a while, also announcing something he had to give her. Finally, after much thought, she agrees to meet up since she owes him that at least. After the call, she seeks permission from Damien, who shockingly allows her to go, although intending to drive her to the destination. Typical Damien. Olivia releases a sigh of relief, just as she hurries to dress, and Damien informs Russell of his plans, which only makes him stare at his boss strangely. Moments later, the sky thunders and releases its tears, and we see Damien watching her from his car as the memory of their first encounter resurfaces and what would have been his fate if she didn't save him that night. Drowning deeper in his thoughts, he recalls so many instances she has been a savior, approaching a conclusion that it's the reason he won't be able to let her go or see her with someone else. He makes a move to return her umbrella before the rain starts properly, but catches sight of Max as he strolls into the diner, obviously glaring daggers and swords at him. Back inside the diner, Max compliments her while settling down, and she reciprocates the energy, although feeling quite awkward. After a moment of silence, she goes first, apologizing for the way she had left him. Nevertheless, he stops the pity party, taking the blame for the article part, and getting a bit curious, he questions her mode of transport in getting there. She confesses to Damien's help in showing and bringing her to the spot, still informing him of a grumpy Damien waiting outside. Shocked, he reveals his thought of him threatening her, but she waves him off, announcing it's her decision due to how unsafe it might be for her and Luna. She also commends his hosting skills, which makes Max finally bare his mind concerning how he feels toward Damien. He accuses the CEO of having bad intentions toward her, and this catches her attention, and she wonders why he holds the belief. She appreciates the redhead for his care, but defends Damien and his goodwill, stating how helpful he has been to her and Luna, but then, he has no choice but to see things from her angle. Shifting the discussion about him, he fills her in on Tommy's case and the need to arrange a befitting funeral whenever he fits the body. She offers her support, making mention of the time he went all out for her and Luna, which makes him wonder when their relationship had diminished to that alone. Moving forward, Olivia reminds him of what he urgently needs to give her, and he simply informs her that it was just a ploy to get to sea, though he hands her a few of her stuff which he extracted from the hospital. A few moments later, they wait under a shelter, even as Max offers to get her an umbrella, and when she goes to respond, Damien appears from nowhere with an umbrella, shutting her up. He questions how their mini meetup went, after which they exchange a brief pleasantry and goodbyes. He takes note of her demeanor, questioning if the reporter had come bearing bad news, but she waves him off, suggesting that they head straight home. Damien suggests that they use a change of scenery, inquiring if she has anywhere in mind, and of course, she comes clean, though not after wondering why he cares so much about her. The next scene reveals the Moondance Diner, with Olivia making some hamburgers when Damien comes up beside her, offering help. Almost done, she announces, which makes him stand close to her instead and choose to interrogate her concerning her past. He questions how long she worked, and she replies, mentioning about 5 years, coupled with the fact that she had met her best friend and bonded with her daughter in the diner. Furthermore, he questions her intentions of bringing him over, and she simply informs him of how comfortable she feels talking with him, also asking him the question she had asked him back in her apartment. She repeats the questions, hoping to get an answer, but at the same time starts the "if it's hard for you to answer" speech. However, he cuts her off, recounting the experience of how it all started. He explains that he had a splitting headache, which exposed him to too many painkillers that later made him end up in an unfamiliar alley. He confesses to having gotten into a fight with some thugs and ended up getting shot. He also admits to having been hallucinating due to the severe injury, which made him call her Julia, but she pries further, demanding who she is. He informs her about the woman he loved in the past, and a visible tic flexes his jaw when he announces her death. Similar to the pain, she wonders how she never knew of it, and continuing his heartbreaking story, he explains why he had disappeared, as he couldn't risk anyone disclosing his condition to the press. He also teases her about having a good heart, questioning her satisfaction with the discovery, and she thanks him for his honesty, wishing that they get to know each other like a normal human. Adding to this, she announces the readiness of the delicious burgers, although mentioning her need to add the sauce, which he opts to help. Admiring his clumsiness, she watches him suffocate the sauce bottle until its contents are everywhere, including their clothing. Cupping her chin, he inquires if she's okay when a sound from the storage room catches their attention. Going into the mood of her Russian protector, he pushes her behind him, hoping that it won't be a wolf, and just in the nick of time, her boss reveals himself. Calling out to each other at the same time, he drops what he carries and strides to Damien, grabbing him by the collar and accusing him of being her cheating husband. She tries to talk her boss out of it, but her lover doesn't allow her to get close, demanding that the elderly man release him. He accuses her of leaving her sick daughter wherever while having a good time with her so-called cheating husband, and only then does she reveal that her husband had died way before Luna was born. She apologizes for not telling him sooner since it's a tough topic to discuss, but the boss plays it cool, apologizing for his reaction. Meanwhile, Damien wraps his head around his recent discovery, even getting annoyed about the difficulty she has faced. He swats his hand from its captor, just as the boss questions his identity, and her reply slaps the indifference off his face. She announces that he is her landlord, turning. She whisper talks to him about living in his house, but he doesn't take that, wishing she used something else apart from that. Scratching his beard, the boss swears to have seen similar actions in movies, judging by how close their faces are. He imagines what the love story will look like, but clears his throat and questions Damien about his financial status, which the latter admits to being fortunate. He also asks him a question about not hurting Olivia, which he confidently replies, the both of them ignoring Olivia's panicked questions. After brief scrutiny, the boss confesses to liking Damien's personality, also inquiring where she had met him. Desperate to switch to a different topic, she quickly observes the diner, asking why it's locked, and he fills her in on the incident, mentioning Terracure folks and threatening to teach them a lesson whenever fate decides he runs into them. On the other hand, Damien offers to fix the busted window, an offer he happily accepts, and opts to prepare a cheesecake for them as he retires into the storeroom. Phew. Olivia releases a starved breath, touching her chest for dramatic effect, as she explains how lucky he is not to be recognized by the boss because he isn't a news watcher. However, he brings up the issue of her calling him a landlord, and she confesses that she is out of options. Nevertheless, he gives her a better answer, saying something about being in the talking stage of their relationship, and she welcomes the idea when his phone buzzes. In the next scene, we see our male lead walking behind Russell as he questions the urgent matter. The blondie questions his intention with his newfound love, and he simply spills his plan to keep her in the penthouse. This aggravates him even more as he queries him about developing the new drug, but he maintains his cool, making a snarky comment about it, also revealing the effort he has made so far with the research director. But then, the blondie cuts him off, obviously not convinced enough, and informs him of how wrong the time is to be flirting with her, repeating the same words he had overheard from earlier. Moving on, he beckons him to take in the scene before him while he is out fooling with a human woman. He approaches the scene with care, the suspicious cops acknowledging his presence as he moves past the caution tape. The scent of human blood is evident in the atmosphere as he sees the corpse of the poor human. A cop stands beside him, explaining the situation of the body when it was found, and judging by the way it's severed in the neck region, Damien knows that it's the handiwork of his kind, a wolf. The cop also informs him of the dead bodies mauled by wild animals found all around the city and the efforts they have made to dispatch more patrol officers. Damien questions the possibility of him not being the first victim, and Russell finds the corpse's ID, which has the Terracure inscription. Damien's mood falls flat as he mentally pieces the situation around him, wondering if ending the man's life was an intentional act. He needs answers, bringing to light information about all wolves living in the human world, affiliated with a specific family, and in return for being watched by the family head, they receive a drug known as ISP. Though there have been a few stubborn-headed wolves that have slipped through the cracks, they never dare to unalive a human or they will endanger their lives. Bearing that in mind, he wonders if Silas has a hand in the recent happenings, and Russell disrupts his thoughts, repeating everything that the research director had said about the ISP. He briefly explains that the ISP is a drug made from the werewolf-killing wolfsbane, so the more their kind takes it, the more poison accumulates in their system, which, unfortunately, makes a person ill over time, triggering the wolf instinct as the body deteriorates. Russell makes reference to Damien's health just before he encountered Olivia. He speaks on behalf of all his kind who suffer similar health challenges, urging his boss to develop the drug as soon as possible, even if it means using his newly found love. Damien states the fact that he can't experiment on Olivia without her knowledge, as he would be deceiving her. But Russell shakes him vigorously, as if shaking off some senselessness, and screams at him to stop worrying about her. He reminds him of what will befall them if the humans find out about their existence, shaking his head as if trying to shake off some bad memory. He announces his intention to take her to the research director, since he won't need his permission but his efforts in developing the new drug. He calmly tells Damien the truth about him deceiving Olivia, which he will have to continue unless he wants his health status to deteriorate. He pushes Russell's hand off him as he has heard enough, and orders the cops to get a morgue for the body and call his attention upon noticing anything suspicious. Just before he exits the scene, he orders Russell to call for a family meeting and interrogate the drug refusers, since they are the ones who likely get into trouble. As he leaves, Russell screams at his back about the need for a new drug, and he nods in response. Transitioning to the next setting, we are captivated to see two wolves with sinister red eyes fight each other when a voice commands them to stop. Silas stands before the animals with some type of bottle as he decides the winner, kicking the loser wolf. Another stupid bet? Turner's question fills the atmosphere, making a joke about his beta's disobedience. He accuses Turner of being wishy-washy, bragging about his 30 betas fit enough to take down the older brown. Turner, a bit amused, gestures at him to take a good look at his crazed betas, hinting that it's not enough to take down the browns. Tightening his fingers on the bottle, he seeks a solution which Turner proffers, of course, being the brain box of their pact. He talks about what Damien is onto, making mention of the family meeting that is scheduled just as they had planned. Continuing the discussion, he advises Silas to get the anti-Damien squad to his side as some of them will try to do something stupid, like check on his health status. A little bit confused, he questions the possibility of that happening, and the priest simply tells him to show who the true alpha is. This gets him excited, even as he shatters the bottle with little to no strength. The next scene reveals Damien, striding toward Olivia's room, hoping she has gotten home safe. He opens the door after knocking, but is shocked to see Olivia awake, rather than tucked under the bed covers. He glances at the TV with a bored eye, questioning what she watches when he spots a bear with clothes. She confesses to watching an anime with Luna, who is now soundly asleep, informing him of the cheesecake she has saved for him. He palms his head when Russell's voice resurfaces, which makes her worried as she questions what is wrong with him. He gives a vague reply about being tired, and she suggests that he should go rest or something. But a sudden realization strikes him about having no side effects, despite her sour mood and the ISP he took before coming home. Prying further, he asks how she feels, and she calmly explains how worried she was about him rushing out of the moon dance in that manner and reminding him of the cheesecake she wants to share with him. Piecing observations together, he notices that her ability manifests whenever she is worried about him. He inquires if she has been upset, but she waves it off, repeating how urgent the meeting might have been. Taken aback, he questions why she is worried about him and not herself, and she points out how unnecessary it was for him to have his assistant accompany her. Trying but failing to hold himself, he leans into her as his emotions become more twisted. The following day, Olivia and Luna sit in the dining room while having a sumptuous breakfast, even though she can't help but think of Damien. She wonders if he still sleeps, remembering the way Luna had woken up with a wild look in her eyes when he tried to kiss her. Wondering if something is wrong, she questions the housekeeper about Damien's breakfast as she seems to clean up the table, and she immediately informs her of Damien's early meeting. The following scene reveals men of calibers assembling at the meeting, as Damien cuts to the chase, announcing the disturbing information of wild animal attacks on the human race. He encourages them to keep their eyes on the ISP refusers, but a man who is certainly not pleased with Damien's words arises and questions his say. He pins the attacks on a mere dog, accusing him of instigating news that isn't yet certain, also saying something about having an ulterior motive. But then, Damien isn't about to take his insolence, as he calmly informs him to settle down, but the man pushes more buttons, questioning him about his hallucinating abilities, which makes Russell pity him already. Adding to this, the brown-suited man doesn't give up, repeating the news about his illness and also wanting to know who will take the ISP drug after hearing the news of almighty Damien Brown going nuts. Russell sneers at him to watch his mouth, but the man insults his position as a beta. Damien stands and screams at the nagging man while shattering the plate before him with a knife. He orders him to sit down, his patience growing thin, but the man doesn't take the hint, accusing Damien of threatening him. A thundering voice filters into the room, repeating what Damien has said, but he chooses to get smart-mouthed with Silas, which lands him on the ground with busted lips and a broken nose. A bit surprised, Damien questions his business in the meeting, and Silas announces becoming the head of the family. The man with a broken nose recovers as he makes a mental note to inquire about more information. Meanwhile, Damien comments about being a head and not an alpha. Suddenly, a hand from nowhere punches him, and Silas announces also making his own betas, although Damien takes note of how relatively fast his brother has gotten. He questions the possibility. Instead, Silas throws another punch, but he blocks it, kicking him to reckless abandon. Pinning him on the wall, he holds his neck, questioning him about the missing humans. Silas, on the other hand, questions his source and denies the fact that he had ended the lives of some humans. Rather, he accuses him of ending Julia's life. A human. Getting smart-mouthed, Silas talks about Julia being old news and makes the terrible mistake of mentioning his newly found lover. Damien only sees red at this point, as he tightens his grip on his neck, slamming him to the wall, though even more badly this time around, which causes a red liquid to spill out of his mouth. Reality dawns on Silas as he finds it more difficult to breathe, and he claws at his brother to ease the tension on his neck, but Damien is truly out of control, just as he warns his brother about Olivia. Russell rushes to the brothers, pleading with Damien to control himself. And with that, he lets go of his brother, who drops to the floor like a sack of potatoes. He examines his boss's wound, informing him to go for treatment and ignoring the scrutinizing looks of the remaining heads. And just when the security is summoned, Silas breaks through the window, running for the hills. Back in the car, Damien palms his head, trying and failing to calm his nerves, even after he has taken his meds. He notifies Russell of the need to go somewhere else, as Olivia and Luna are back in the penthouse, but the blondie reminds him of having Olivia by his side for better healing, and he screams a wild, "Not now," groaning in pain. He remembers how damaged he is, rather staying oblivious to what will happen if he shows his true form to his lover and her child. He simply informs him to contact Sarah and instruct her to get them to safety. Shortly after, Russell helps Damien onto the bed, suggesting he calls the doctor, but he stops him, saying something about calming down first. He immediately changes his mind, letting the blondie that he is better off alone even though he doesn't share the same thoughts, dashing off to look for help. Having the room to himself, Damien tries to gather his thoughts, just as he begins undoing his buttons. However, he feels a hand on his, as Olivia takes over the buttons and he wonders how she had gotten into the room. Then again, her scent fills his nose and her presence becomes so surreal as he clearly remembers instructing Russell to take them to safety. He wonders if he's dreaming about her even in a situation like such, feeling something proud that he can do whatever his heart desires. At that moment, he kisses her, but she feels his chest, remembering his wound and informing him of the wrong timing of their romance. Shutting her up, he pulls her to him, kissing her even more, even though he ponders over the realness of his dream. As he basks in the pool of her scent, he feels his wound healing, and that is when he realizes that it's his reality. He loathes himself for putting Olivia in danger. Meanwhile, Olivia is worried sick about him, seeking to know what happened to him, but his reply is shocking. He announces the need to be alone, but she doesn't take the hint, offering to call the doctor, but he stands by his word, asking her to leave, which she does, though telling him to get some rest. Resting behind the door, Olivia thinks about Damien's hot and cold attitude towards her, wondering if it is due to her prying for information, but brushes it off with the fact that he is in a lot of pain to think straight. Russell walks towards her, inquiring about the Damien situation, and she explains that he seems not to know her at first, but currently back to his senses, and a suspicious spark shines in his eyes, as he confirms the suspicion of needing her for the new drug. Olivia accuses him of scaring her earlier, judging by the way he had taken Minsoon and Luna out of the penthouse, and urged her to go check on him. Russell blows a lie about Damien needing her, though she doesn't feel that way. Moreover, he doesn't give her time to think things through, informing her about the research carried out on Luna's body, which has yielded something unusual that might be the key to curing her illness. Olivia doesn't hide her excitement, but he goes further, proposing to check her body for similar attributes. She doesn't give it a thought due to excitement, even as he offers to drive her to the lab, assuring her about Damien's health, given that his doctor is on his way. Fast forward to the hospital, Russell introduces her to Dr. Aiden, who is the head of the TerraCure pharmaceutical lab. Olivia exchanges pleasantries with the doctor, oblivious to the environment around her. The gentlemen excuse themselves for a quick discussion, in which Russell urges him to quickly check her, but the doctor questions Damien's whereabouts, and the blondie simply lets him know that it's a secret between them, as long as it is successful. The doctor is not totally convinced, informing of Damien's rule to seek her consent, but then again, Blondie brushes it off with the fact that she is oblivious to being used. Moving forward, Russell assures the doctor that Damien will change his mind with time. But guess what? The doctor, still not convinced, informs them to wait a little while he fetches his supply. Instead, he goes into a far distance and contacts Damien, spilling the tea about Russell's escapades. Shortly after, the duo waits for the doctor's signal. Meanwhile, Olivia feels down for having divided attention when all attention should be on her daughter. Russell glances at his watch, already getting annoyed at the doctor's laxity when a figure in the hallway dries the liquid in his mouth. Damien stomps the hallway with determined strength, stopping in front of Olivia as he announces his plans to take her away, hence she doesn't belong there. However, Olivia is tired of being pushed around, refusing to leave with him since she came because of Luna in the very first place, even repeating the exact words Russell had told her, but Damien denies the information, saying there's no such thing. He pleads with her to go home with him, but she refuses, needing an explanation of everything going on, and immediately turns to Russell to repeat everything he had told her. Damien is quite aware of Russell's plans, announcing the fact that he is mistaken, and she confirms from the blondie, but the sneaky bastard throws Damien under the bus, announcing that it was first-hand information from Damien himself. Betrayal flashes in her eyes as she accuses him of hiding a lot from her, questioning if she is worth any explanation. Damien, on the other hand, makes an effort for her to see things from his angle, but she only waits for his answers, concerning the wound from earlier and Russell's lies. Olivia walks out of his presence when he can't form words. Nevertheless, he succeeds in grabbing her hand as he begs her to wait. He questions where she is off to, but she decides to hide that from him, making a sad comment about honesty and feelings. Chuckling, Russell questions his reason for staying behind, and before he can utter one more word, Damien pounces on him and screams at him for playing games with his lover. Russell, on the other hand, is unfazed, reminding him of the truth about his younger brother ending his life if not for her help. He confesses to acting for the greater good, but the raging CEO reminds him of doing whatever to her by himself, and dares him to lay his hands on her for a second time, promising him a bloody end. Standing in front of her former apartment, Olivia rummages through her pocket but recalls giving the keys to Damien, unfortunately. "I feel stupid," she whispers, not able to stand upright as she falls to her knees, wondering if she is overreacting, mostly as he doesn't owe her any explanation whatsoever. Basking in the pain of her husband's death, she only takes precautions to avoid the past repeating itself. "Olivia," Max's voice fills the hallway, and he questions what she's doing on the floor, and she immediately cooks something up about forgetting her keys, also inquiring if he has a spare key to her apartment. Wondering if something happened between her and Damien, He gives her a positive reply but invites her to his house since hers is completely empty. She refuses his help, remembering the way they had parted in the cafe, but he tells her not to take it the wrong way, his offer still standing. He confesses feeling bad about having to leave her outside, and she pushes through the door, just as he announces for her to make herself comfortable. He suggests ordering pizza for dinner. Instead, she apologizes, and he questions why. She confesses to always ending up getting his help, but he brushes it off, stating the fact that it makes him feel better. She explains that she will be heading back to the penthouse soon enough, thanking him for offering to order dinner. Makes calls onto her, seeking sincerity as he questions if she is cool being around him, but she mentally answers his question, silently loathing herself for expecting too much from him. But the sound of bangs on the door disrupts their conversation as they both wonder who could be at the door at such an ungodly hour of the night. He tells her to stay still while he goes to check, but lo and behold, his editor screams at him for not answering his phone. He nags Max for sitting and doing nothing while he has a story to cover, but the redhead simply asks his business coming down to his apartment, and that is where all hell breaks loose. Mr. Baldness threatens to fire him unless he finds out everything he can concerning Damian Brown's new women, and Olivia's green pool shimmers with unshed tears as she hides in a corner. Max isn't backing down from the fight as he defends Olivia, stating the fact that she has been scarce the past few days, which the editor surprisingly agrees with, saying something about the said lover disappearing into thin air. He also comments on Damian getting bored with her since he is surrounded by so many women to last him a lifetime. The redhead proposes to the baldhead to give up on her, and the latter even goes ahead to call her a gold digger. In a bid to defend Olivia, Max says something contradicting but does well to hold himself, and that earns him a suspicious look from Mr. Baldhead, just as it strikes him that they had attended the same conference that birthed the scandal. In order to save his head, he comments about Damian having better taste in women and people in general. Mentally, piecing 1 and 2 together, he smells something fishy with him, glaring at him with true hatred. Meanwhile, Max feigns innocence, praying his editor buys it, which he luckily does. Giving up, the editor instructs Max to come in early the following day, but the redhead announces his plans of coming to work after since he will be attending a friend's funeral. The editor questions the possibility of other of his friends showing up, and he confirms it, making him smile in a sinister manner, even as he offers his condolences and exits the building. Locking back the door, he begs Olivia to ignore his editor's words, and she expresses her shock, although a bit calm that her name is not revealed. Yet, lacking emotions on her face, she spills the tea about her final plan of moving out of the penthouse, especially since the scandal is all blown over. She contacts Minsoon, and Max can't help but wonder what the problem is, but decides to stay completely out of it. The next scene reveals Olivia in a taxi, as she and Max exchange their goodbyes, but before they finally part ways, she reminds him to send her the address of Tommy's funeral, and he waves at her as the car drives off. Meanwhile, we spot Damian and Russell across the road as the latter questions his plans for getting her back, and he says something about her needing alone time to think things through, something that Russell doesn't understand, obviously. He further speaks about his plans of not deciding to use her, coupled with the fact that his face is the least want-to-see faces on her mind. Russell gets exasperated once again about his plans to put the drug development on hold, stating the possibility of her running away. He suggests keeping an eye on her, but Damian warns him to let her be until she gets better from the injury. The next morning reveals Silas waking up from an endless sleep, covered in bandages as he gasps for air. He seems to have no memory of the heads meeting, loathing himself for waiting time on long-ass sleep. However, he seems to recall Damian's strength, and he bangs on the door with the intention of finding more humans to turn betas. The security personnel inform him of Turner leading the mass at the very moment, and he delights in the news as it will give him a head start. But then, they try to stop him, and he mocks their wolf kind, warning them not to stand in his way. The man in the suit becomes the voice of reason, highlighting all the bruises on his body which might end him in more serious trouble. He continues his advice, but soon after, he finds himself on the floor while the other staggers behind. He lets them know that he won't be taking any sort of insults from them, despite the shape he is in. The other man decides to transform into a wolf, which only makes Silas laugh even harder at his stupidity. He promises it a good beat while transforming into a larger wolf, and as the battle begins, Silas beats him up, clawing and biting at it before flinging him with reckless abandon. He warns the wolf, but the weaker wolf doesn't take the hint as he recharges, its scary red eyes glowing. The memorial service for Tommy comes to a wrap, and Max thanks her for making an appearance, although apologizes for the empty casket. She sympathizes with him and assures him of please Tommy in heaven after seeing all his effort. However, he pries further regarding how long she plans on staying with Minsoon, and she replies to him, talking about getting her things from the penthouse and every other thing done as soon as possible since gives her hell. Always talking about making up with Damien. He also asks about the last time they had spoken, and she tells him, filling him in on his plan to send Luna a doctor, which she seemingly concurs with, to avoid running into him. Max Reynolds? Turner calls out, and the redhead pays his respect as they exchange pleasantries, introducing Olivia when he inquires about her identity. Olivia also shows her respect, complimenting the service he had conducted, and that is when it strikes him, recognizing her face from the diner and hoping she doesn't recognize him. Adjusting his glasses for a better disguise, he questions their plans to visit the cemetery, and after a few whispers and eye contact, Olivia agrees to follow him, and he chooses to be her guide. Catching subtle whiffs of Damien's scent, he remembers the bullet with Damien's blood, refusing to believe that it's a coincidence, as he takes it as a sign from God to look into her. The hall is empty once again, and a certain white wolf hovers about, getting annoyed at the empty space since it imagines feasting on humans for breakfast. However, he decides to heal while pretending as a priest, rather than going back to meet the Black Wolves. Internally, he thanks Turner for forcing him to attend Mass, as it turns out to be of help. But then, out of nowhere, Olivia steps into the church, greets the father, and walks directly to where she must have dropped her veil. Seconds later, she finds it, but Silas apologizes for interrupting her, and she flinches, commenting on the manner he scared her. She inquires what he wants, but he only ponders on what business she has with the church. He uses his hand to block his face stylishly, hoping she won't recognize him, but she catches sight of his injury and reaches out to help. He simply waves her off, and this brings memories of the way Damien had done the same, blaming herself for acting like a fool. Deciding not to overstep, she offers her apology for being nosy as she announces her intentions to get going. Not ready to be separated from her, he offers his hand, making a shitty excuse about an imaginary mass starting soon, also mentioning the absence of the first aid kit. He offers her a piece of clothing to use instead, taking his gracious time to bask in her scent. Even though he doesn't perceive Julia anymore, he holds the belief that it is definitely hers. Moving forward, he wonders why, when she doesn't look like Julia, coming close to her until their boots collide. He stares at her intensely, and she is forced to drop his hands while she wonders about the reason he stares at her in that manner. Looking in the direction of a certain sound, she looks around, her eyes coming in contact with the raging wolf. "A wolf!" she screams. Silas rolls his eyes at the party pooper that follows him this far. Nevertheless, he refuses to act rashly to avoid putting her in harm's way, deciding to battle with his human form. Silas screams at her to run, but she simply stands there speaking her English vocabulary. What's more, she tries to dissuade him from fighting the beast, but even he gets tired of her blabbering. He demands that she go fetch the priest if she's worried indeed, but she keeps blabbering, questioning how he would be of help, and he gets fed up, instructing her to run while he distracts. Trembling, she is torn between calling the police or people around when she hears her name. Turner shows her the way out, instructing her to run for her dear life, but she informs him of the need to call the police, and he announces to have already done so. She doesn't give up, trying to find out Silas's fate, but Turner informs her not to worry as he will go help out. Our leading female doesn't take the hint as she opts to help, which the father appreciates, but encourages her to leave as she would only be a hindrance. Blessing her, he retires back to the church and she makes a decision to help out, dashing into the cemetery with the intention of finding Max. Suddenly, she trips over a stone, and before she can kiss the hard floor, Damien catches her by the waist, making the dormant butterflies in our belly flutter. She's obviously still a bit furious as she puts a distance between her and Damien. She accuses him of following her, but in his defense, he states that Minsun had reached out to him, saying that she was waiting for him in the chapel. Annoyed at her friend's tactics, she states her reason for coming to the church, which he now realizes, though voicing the need to see her. Confused, Olivia wonders why he now acts that way, when he had treated her as a nuisance from their last encounters. He questions the reason for being in such a hurry that might have resulted in her hurting herself. She makes mention of the wolf back in the chapel, and he grabs her immediately, probably checking for injuries. He questions the possibility, and she confirms it, and out of nowhere, Max juggles toward them, questioning what Damien is doing in the cemetery. As expected, he ignores his entirety, and Oliva relays the wolf saga to him. When he goes to check it out, Damien stops him, explaining the risk involved as he asks him to go home, although after offering to send his team in. Just when you think you've seen enough drama for the day, a man in disguise takes pictures of the trio, blowing up his cover when his phone hits the ground. The information thirst reporter picks up his and races for the hills. However, Max recognizes him as the editor-chief and chases after him, screaming at Olivia to send someone to the chapel while she stands there, completely dumbfounded. The next scene unfolds with a furious Turner as he ponders the reason Silas had messed with the fiery betas while in his wounded state, knowing fully well how hard it is to control beta without trust. His next line of thought gets us curious, as we wonder what plans he holds. Screaming the name Silas, he questions what he was thinking, beating a beta in his state, but he explains the fact that his body was already healed even though he never backs down from a fight. Surprised, Turner questions what he has done, but he simply says nothing, and only mentions running into the woman who scents like Julia. He further nags about Damien taking her with him, when the priest admits that it's far from sensible but pieces 1 and 2 together, recalling the scandalous articles about Olivia Moore, a woman that has the 2 brothers obsessed unknowingly to her. Getting out of his head, he instructs Silas to leave the chapel, along with the beta, as Olivia went to get help, but he counters, questioning the reason for running, when he can turn them into betas and have Olivia all to himself. Turner warns him against making any move, suggesting that she could be the key to stabilizing the betas. Silas gets irritated, mentioning the fact that she's in Damien's care, and Turner reminds him of saving her life, which could be a key pass to meeting her again if he doesn't lose her trust. Back in the car, Olivia worries still about the big black wolf she had encountered in the chapel, but calms her down by informing her of his security on their way there. He regrets letting Olivia out of his sight, wishing to have listened to Russell about having her tailed, however. He notices her trembling getting worse and does the gentleman thing of tucking her inside his suit jacket. He whispers to her about being calm when she's warm and asks her to return to the penthouse. She is speechless for some time, but highlights the fact that reporters have backed off. She repeats the speech about protecting her from danger at all costs and doing all that if she's situated in the penthouse. Sucking in a deep breath, she reminds him that she's a grown-ass woman, not some little girl always seeking help, and definitely not a damsel in distress. She accuses him of knowing the true reason she needs to leave, and he remembers how selfish he is to always receive and never to give. He understands her perfectly well and offers to give her a ride to Minsun's house instead, and that she agrees to. "Give it back," the editor-in-chief screams, questioning why he takes his stuff, but Max is too furious to listen to his flimsy excuses. Questioning if he had followed him to the funeral, but he confesses to coming for a friend's funeral also. He gets annoyed when Max pries further, refusing to give him a reply, but the redhead couldn't care less, flinging the phone into the air with reckless abandon and giving it a good smash when it lands on the floor. Quite excited to have achieved something, he urges him to fire him, but the douchebag informs him of the already uploaded article, as if the day can get any words. In the next scene, we see our female lead together with Damien as they wait for the door to be opened. Thanking him, she lets him know that she is safe, but he insists on waiting till she goes inside, and Minsun opens the door almost immediately with a doll expression on her face. She makes a comment about their situationship, and Olivia confesses to having run into him in the chapel, but she doesn't register, instantly informing them of the full-blown emergency. She mentions everything the article contains, the part about Luna's strange disease catching her attention as she requests to see it. Handing her the phone, Minsun reassures her the article is an A-level graded bullshit, questioning who the culprit might be. Olivia fills her in on Max and his chief editor, as she reads the harsh comments accompanying the articles, and emotions get the best of her, even as she feels the need to pass out. Damien takes the phone from her, urging her to stop reading, but she fights to get it back, embarrassed about the world talking about her. Notwithstanding, he hugs and consoles her, whispering reassuring words into her ear, and promises to do all it takes to wipe her name from the newspapers. Minsun's smile screams the word mischievous as she drags her friend, putting a distance between the two. She whispers something mischievous into her ear, and Olivia refuses her advice because it involves using Damien, but guess what? He begs her to use him as she pleases, so long it keeps her safe, and mischievous Minsun claps her hand while announcing that the problem is solved. Moving on, she suggests that they get engaged, and that way the rumors will die down. though she blames him since he has only been with celebrities, which makes her an easy target for internet trollers. Minsun continues her analysis of them being engaged to be married, which will turn the haters into her lovers, thereby toning down the criticism. Damien, impressed by her analysis, lets her know that Terracure's PR could use some of her brains, immediately asking Olivia if she is cool with it. However, she looks hesitant, probably scared of making a decision that big, but he announces his sole intention to protect her, whether they are engaged or married. Sensing how anxious she is, she invites her inside to talk things through, also partly for privacy's sake. Minsun checks in on her friend, asking if she's doing all right, and Olivia reassures her that she's calmed down now, still trying to process the whirlwind of events that have unfolded. Minsun is curious about why Olivia turned down Damien's offer, and Olivia explains that it's all her fault. The media frenzy, the scandal, everything. She feels weird asking Damien to pose as her fiancé after all that's happened, and she's still grappling with the consequences of her actions. Minsun gently suggests that maybe Olivia's hesitation has more to do with her late husband than she's letting on, and Olivia's expression changes, a mix of sadness and nostalgia washing over her. Minsun apologizes for overstepping, saying she's just worried about Olivia and wants to see her happy. Minsun leans in, pointing out that Damien is a powerful man who can afford to get engaged 100 times without batting an eye, but for Olivia, it's a whole different story. He's got the world at his feet, and she's just trying to navigate the chaos that's become her life. Now that Olivia's name and face are out in the open, she'll be labeled as the woman who seduced Damien for the rest of her life. And with the way things are going, Luna won't be left untouched or unaffected either. Just then, Damien walks in, and they're both surprised to see him, the tension in the air palpable. Olivia apologizes for keeping him waiting, and Minsun excuses herself, leaving them alone in an awkward silence. Damien apologizes for being rash and rushing into a decision, saying he didn't want Olivia to get hurt. He's had time to reflect, and he realizes that his offer might have been hurtful, and he's willing to take responsibility for his actions. Olivia tells him not to be too hard on himself, taking the blame instead, and Damien looks at her with a mix of surprise and gratitude. As they talk, Olivia can't help but notice how different Damien is now. Cautious, sweet, and gentle, a far cry from the cold, distant person she met before. She admits that the idea of engagement left her dumbfounded at first, something she thought was way behind her. Honestly, she just didn't want to reopen old wounds, and the thought of committing to someone new is daunting. Damien stops Olivia in her tracks, his eyes locked on hers as he assures her she won't get hurt. He takes a deep breath, drops down on one knee, and holds her arm, his voice filled with conviction as he promises to be there for her, to protect her from the chaos that's been unleashed. It's a ridiculously romantic gesture, and Olivia's left speechless, but a smile escapes her lips anyway. She's still trying to wrap her head around Damien's mysterious ways, but in this moment she feels a spark of hope, a sense that maybe, just maybe, she can trust him. With a nod, she agrees to the whole engagement setup, and Damien's face lights up with a radiant smile. He's grateful for her bold decision, acknowledging that it wasn't an easy choice to make. Olivia waves off his thanks, her eyes locked on his, and she's the one who's truly grateful. Looking at him, still on his knees, with that goofy grin plastered on his face, she feels a flutter in her chest. Fast forward to the public announcement, and Damien's addressing the media, his voice firm and authoritative as he sets the record straight. He and Olivia Moore are engaged, and he's asking the public to back off, to stop making accusations against her. Rumors about his fiancée will be dealt with legally, and he's not messing around. They've certainly made a splash, and the news is spreading like wildfire. Meanwhile, Max is sitting in his office, trying to make sense of the announcement, wondering what kind of game Damien's playing. Is this a smokescreen to protect Olivia, or is there something more to it? Just then, the editor-in-chief walks in, looking smug and self-satisfied, and proceeds to trash-talk Olivia, which gets Max's redhead temper flaring. He grabs his boss, leaving the editor-in-chief baffled by the outburst. Max reminds him that he'd told him to fire the guy, but somehow he'd ignored him. With a flourish, Max hands over a piece of paper containing some very interesting info he found on his boss's computer, a stalking list, proof that he's been paid by influential folks to stalk and fabricate scandals. The editor-in-chief's smug expression falters, and Max is ready to take him down. The editor stands his ground, trying to justify his actions by claiming he's not the first to do this in the industry, and that nobody's clean. But Max is having none of it, his anger still simmering just below the surface. He lets the editor go, but not before warning him that he'll be taking this to Terracure, and that he's already handed over the original copy of the evidence. The editor-in-chief's face goes white as fear grips him, and he realizes he's in big trouble. Meanwhile, someone flips over the newspaper, reading the news of Damien and his newly engaged fiancée, and can't help but comment on what a special young man Damien is. His dad looks on, beaming with pride, and it's clear that he's a proud papa. Damien's dad looks remarkably young and attractive, and it's easy to see where Damien gets his good looks from. Damien sits in his office, scanning the articles about his engagement, and it's clear that the public's perception of him has shifted overnight. The articles are more positive, and the malicious comments have died down significantly. Just then, Someone steps into his office, and Damien asks about the interview scheduled for the next day, which he doesn't recall arranging. It turns out it's an interview with the press to show off his engagement, and Damien's not exactly thrilled about it. Blondie lets out a deep sigh, still trying to wrap his head around the whole drama with Olivia. He can't fathom why Damien brought her into the picture, especially since it's causing a stir among the family heads. Apparently, many of them thought Damien would marry one of their daughters, and they see his engagement to Olivia as a betrayal. Damien shrugs it off, saying he never intended to marry someone he doesn't know. Blondie points out that a relationship with the Browns would be really advantageous, but Damien's not interested. When asked what he's decided to do with Olivia, Damien drops a bombshell. He's going to imprint on her. Blondie's shock is palpable, and it's clear that this is a big deal. When werewolves reach a certain age, they find a lifelong partner to imprint on, and it's a serious commitment, which is essentially a pledge of love and an everlasting bond. It's not just some human wolf thing, it's a deep commitment. Through imprinting, werewolves can always find their partner, no matter the distance, and they'll sense if they're in danger. Damien's come to this conclusion because he's determined to protect Olivia in his own way. Blondie's having none of it, though, and thinks it's a terrible decision. He points out that humans have a ridiculously short lifespan, barely 100 years, and it's just not fair to Damien. But Damien's all, hey, I'm certain it's not impossible, and brings up the fact that Blondie's relative imprinted on a human in the past. Yeah, that relative became a shell of his former self after his human partner died in a car accident, but Damien's all, I'm willing to take that risk. Blondie's visibly enraged, calling Damien a fool who's just infatuated with Olivia's scent. But Damien stands his ground, his mind made up. He'll do anything to protect her, even if it means risking his own life. Our female lead sits at the table, sipping the glass of red wine Damien poured for her, and comments that she didn't expect all the fuss, thinking they'd just be practicing for their interview. Damien shrugs it off like it's no big deal, and Olivia appreciates his efforts, thanking him for the press conference and announcement that's reduced the negative articles. He asks about her well-being, and she flashes a cheeky smile, assuring him she's much better now. Damien's eyes linger on her neck, and he's on a mission to kiss the nape of her neck to imprint on her, but he's not sure how to go about it. He recalls a past encounter, but Olivia brings him back to the present, asking to go over some interview questions. Damien asks about their origin story, how they met, and Olivia recounts their first meeting in the alley on a rainy day. They share a glance, and Damien's curiosity is piqued, asking why she was in the alley that day. Olivia explains she was on her way back from work, and Damien's interested in her job at the diner. She mentions it wasn't difficult, but she was going through a tough time personally, and that fateful day she'd asked her boss for an advance for Luna's medication. As fate would have it, their paths crossed, and meeting him was the luckiest thing that ever happened to her. She says this without much enthusiasm, and Damien's tense, trying to play it cool, claiming the wine is a bit strong. Olivia's not buying it, and Damien asks if she meant what she said about him being the luckiest thing that happened. Olivia reaffirms her statement, and Damien's cheeks burn bright red. He stretches out his hands, sliding closer to her, and Olivia's practically frozen, trying to analyze what's happening. Damien's so close to achieving his mission, and the tension between them is palpable. Just as things are getting intense, Blondie strolls in, completely carefree, and stops Damien and Olivia in their tracks. He's got news, the boss wants to see them, and if they don't show up, he'll come to them personally. Damien's offended, not one to be threatened, but Blondie just shrugs and takes off, leaving them with the message. Olivia's curious about who could threaten Damien, and he fills her in. It's his dad, who he and Russell refer to as the boss. She asks about their relationship, and Damien's expression says it all. It's complicated. He reflects on how his dad retired early and passed on the role of family head to him, but still holds the title and the wolves' support. Damien knows his dad's return to New York will disrupt the balance of power, and he's worried he'll find out about Olivia's incredible power and want to use her for research. His dad can be ruthless, and Damien's not sure what to do. He's seen his dad's tactics before, and he knows he'll stop at nothing to get what he wants. Olivia suggests meeting with his dad, but Damien's hesitant, wondering if his dad knows they're faking their engagement. He's not sure how his dad will react, but he knows it won't be good. Damien decides they should meet with his dad as if they're real fiancés and fill him in on the situation later. Olivia's on board, but just as Damien tries to imprint on her again, Luna bursts in, screaming, "Mommy!" and foiling his plans for the second time. Luna walks up to her mom, asking if they're going somewhere special, and Olivia's completely confused. Apparently, Russell told Luna they'd be going somewhere, and he's interrupted Damien's plans once again. Damien's starting to get frustrated, but he's trying to keep his cool. As they stare at the building in sight, Luna's eyes widen in amazement, and she squeals with delight. "It's like a princess castle," she exclaims, bouncing up and down. Damien, on the other hand, looks less than thrilled. He had no intention of returning to this place until he'd perfected the drug, but here they are. He turns to Olivia and warns her not to leave his side, advising her to be careful around his father. Olivia raises an eyebrow, wondering what he's talking about, but before she can ask any questions, the gate creaks open, and two men walk up to them. James, Damien's father, greets his son with a smile, but Damien's response is lukewarm. James turns his attention to Olivia, and she looks him straight in the face, wondering why Damien warned her about him. James smiles charmingly and tells her to address him as James, proceeding to kiss her knuckles and welcome her to the Brown Manor. Damien watches the exchange with a disgruntled look on his face, clearly not trusting his father. As they enter the manor, James shows them to their room, explaining that it's not always used, but he had it put in order for their visit. Luna's having the time of her life, taking in the sights and sounds of the grand manor. Olivia comments on how pretty everything is, but Damien's expression remains the same. He just looks pissed. James thanks Olivia for her appreciation, saying it's his pleasure to accommodate them. After all, they're his future daughter-in-law and granddaughter. Luna thanks him too and gets a pat on the head from James. But just as things are going smoothly, Damien requests that they get a different room, and his dad asks why. Damien's response is immediate and intense. He screams that his dad knows exactly why he wants a different room. The room belonged to Julia, and the tension in the air becomes palpable. It's clear that there's a lot of history and emotion tied up in this room, and Damien's reaction is just the tip of the iceberg. James asks what's wrong with the room, but Damien's not having it, pleading to stay somewhere else. Our protagonist is perfectly fine with the room, though, and Luna's already in love with it. Olivia gently pushes Damien aside, suggesting he go catch up with his dad and calm down. But Damien's being super clingy, refusing to leave her side. Our girl's not having it, though, and eventually, Damien agrees to leave. As soon as he's out the door, Olivia's face turns bright red, and she can't help but wonder how Damien could so comfortably say something so awkward in front of his father. Just then, a friendly-looking lady breezes in, holding a kettle in hand, and greets Olivia with a warm smile. She introduces herself as Annie, explaining that she's been assigned to help Olivia and Luna during their stay. Our female lead is grateful for the help, and it's clear that Annie's going to be a regular face around here. Annie pours a glass of tea, and Olivia compliments the tea, noticing it's steeped with flowers from the gardens at Brown Manor. Annie asks if Olivia has any allergies, wanting to inform the chef, but Olivia assures her she's all good. Annie's not taking no for an answer, though. Apparently, Mr. Brown made it clear they're to be treated like royalty. Olivia laughs and mentions that Luna loves steak, and Annie grins, excited to share the news with the chef. For a moment, Olivia sees James as a kind and generous man, not the threat Damien made him out to be. But then, she hears a clattering noise behind her and turns around to see Luna playing with a chair, almost falling over. Olivia springs up in a flash, screaming at Luna to be careful. In the chaos, Annie reacts quickly, spilling some tea on Olivia's skirt. On purpose, it seems. Why, though? She apologizes right away, but Olivia's not sure what to make of it. Luna dashes towards her mom, and Olivia takes the blame, being her usual humble self. Luckily, the tea wasn't hot, so she's not hurt. Annie offers to get her some spare women's clothes, and Olivia agrees, still feeling a bit bewildered. As Annie hands her a white dress, Olivia asks if it's really all right, and Annie assures her it's all good. But when Annie offers to style Olivia's hair to match the dress perfectly, Olivia starts to feel a sense of unease. There's something about Annie's eyes that doesn't add up. They seem to be hiding a secret, and Olivia's not sure what to make of it. Annie's being super helpful, but her intentions seem suspicious, and Olivia's starting to wonder what's really going on here. Damien's still fuming about the room James chose for Olivia, and he's not afraid to show it. The boss, however, is calm and collected, saying his boy's still as impatient as ever. Damien's not having it, though. He's all business, demanding to know why James left Julia's room untouched and why he chose that particular room for Olivia's use. James responds calmly, saying a lot of work went into getting the room in tip-top condition, and Damien's just holding on to past memories. Damien senses a bit of truth in his dad's words, but he's not having it. Just then, his vision gets blurry and he feels dizzy and disoriented. James observes that his son's still obsessed with Julia, and that's why he's attracted to Olivia, another human. Damien waves it off, refusing to accept his father's theories. He insists he likes Olivia because she's a good person, and it has nothing to do with Julia. The boss isn't buying it, though, and he says if Olivia's as good as Damien claims, she'll accept him for who he really is. Damien's left speechless, and he springs up from his seat, leaving to meet up with his fiancée. As he leaves, he passes by the manor's butler, who bows in respect to the young master. The butler informs James that his instructions have been carried out, and he's given the clothes to Olivia. It's clear that James is behind some kind of plot, but what could it mean? It's just a dress after all. James spills the rest of his tea on the nearby plant, and it's clear he's on a mission to find out if Olivia is truly a good person, as Damien claims. The boss believes strongly that Olivia is just someone his son is attracted to. If Olivia is a human with the same powers as Julia, James will stop at nothing to keep her away from Damien. That rare power, which physically heals wounds but draws you in mentally with a scent that makes you long for them, is a trap set by powerful people to lure werewolves. James knows it can't be true love, and he's determined to protect his son. Meanwhile, Damien's walking down the hallway when he suddenly stops in his tracks, his head banging and legs shaking. He doesn't feel too good, and he knows he needs to pull himself together. If Olivia uses her powers on him, his dad will find out and confirm his suspicions. Damien takes a deep breath, trying to be natural, but shock is written all over his face. He looks ahead, and his eyes widen in disbelief. How? What is she doing here? He asks, his voice trembling. But as he looks closer, he realizes it's not Julia. It's Olivia, looking lost and confused. Damien apologizes, explaining that he didn't recognize her in the new outfit. James walks up, complimenting Olivia on the dress, and Damien's eyes narrow. He's put the pieces together. His dad made Olivia wear Julia's dress, and that's what's got him so angry. Why did you make her wear this? Damien demands, his voice rising. Olivia tries to calm him down, looking confused, and asks what the problem is. Damien's response is immediate. The dress doesn't suit you. Take it off. Olivia's stunned, but she agrees, saying she felt the same way when she put it on. The tension in the air is palpable, and it's clear that James's plan is already in motion. He offers to show Olivia around the house, and she agrees, seeming to enjoy the prospect of exploring the grand estate. As she walks off with James, Damien's left standing there, feeling like he's been punched in the gut. Everything's happening so fast. First, he's hit with that dizzying pain, and then he's having visions of Julia. He staggers forward, holding his head, trying to process what's going on. It's like his world's been turned upside down and he's struggling to keep up. He watches as Olivia disappears around the corner with his dad, feeling a pang of unease. Olivia and James are hanging out in the library, surrounded by a fascinating collection of books. James mentions that his family's been collecting these books for generations, and he offers to let Olivia borrow any book she'd like. As she scans the shelves for something that catches her eye, her mind starts to wander. She can't help but think about Damien's behavior earlier. He was being so harsh and strange. It's like when they were at the lab and he told her she didn't belong there. She pulls a book from the shelf and James notices, asking if she's thinking about his son. Olivia quickly denies it, saying she's just found a book she'd like to borrow. But James is too clever, and he asks again, this time wondering if she's upset with Damien for the way he acted earlier. Luna chimes in, saying she can see a wolf in the book's title. Later, James asks Olivia if she's certain Damien has her best interests at heart. Olivia insists that he does, but James scoffs in disbelief, his expression cold and skeptical. The conversation leaves Olivia feeling uneasy, and she tries to convince herself that she's just being paranoid. But the encounter leaves a bad taste in her mouth. At dinner, James asks Olivia if she enjoyed the tour of the house, and she thanks him for showing her around. He asks Luna what she liked most, and the little girl is too busy devouring her steak to care about anything else. James turns his attention to Damien, asking where he disappeared to after their encounter in the hallway. Our guy Damien is trying to play it cool, saying he was just resting in his room, but his dad's not buying it. James knows how to push his buttons, and he says that ditching his fiancée and holing up in his room isn't exactly the best behavior. Olivia tries to smooth things over, saying she's sure Damien was just tired, and he assures her he's feeling better now. But the truth is, he blacked out in the hallway and somehow ended up on his bed. It's mysterious, and Damien's not sure what's going on. He's trying to keep his cool, sipping his wine with composure, but when he looks up to start a conversation with Olivia, something's off. Suddenly, he's in a state of alarm again, and a familiar voice is questioning him about the drug. Through his glass of wine, he sees Julia sitting across the table from him, and it's like a memory replaying before his eyes. She walks up to him, reminding him of his promise to take the drug and become human like her. Damien's shocked, and Julia's deranged look is freaking him out. He's promised to stay with her forever, and it's like a horror movie scene unfolding before his eyes. Damien's reaction is intense. He shatters his glass of wine, sweats profusely, and looks like he's about to pass out. Olivia's worried, asking if he's all right, but Damien's not responding. He knows that if he collapses, Olivia will use her powers, and that's the last thing he wants. Our guy quickly gets up, asking to be excused, and walks away, slamming the door behind him. Olivia's left speechless, worried about him, and James is asking her how she feels about all this. He's pointing out that Damien has no respect for her, and Olivia's taking her time to respond. She thinks about James's behavior. He's completely unfazed, as if he expected Damien to walk out. He didn't even ask anything when Olivia changed her outfit earlier. Now it's like he's trying to change her mind about Damien. Olivia's not having it, though. She says Damien's just struggling, and James should be worried about his son, not criticizing him. She gets up, determined to follow Damien and check on him. James asks why she's doing all this, even after what she's seen, and Olivia looks back at him, saying she's worried about her fiancé. Damien's walking in the woods, but he has no idea how he ended up here. He ran out of the mansion without thinking, and now he's surrounded by trees. He's been here before, though. He remembers coming here to think about upping the dosage of wolfsbane. He was experimenting with the drug, trying to find a way to control his werewolf instincts. As he walks, he hears a rustling in the bushes behind him. He turns around and someone steps out of the bushes, saying hi. It's Julia, the girl he met in these very woods. She asked him if he was a wolf, and he was surprised to see a human out here. But Julia wasn't afraid of him. Her father was a hunter, so she was used to being around predators. They became fast friends and eventually something more. Looking back, Damien regrets how things turned out. As he stands there, lost in thought, he remembers the night Julia walked up to him in the woods. He'd warned her not to come near the Brown estate that day. It was a blue moon, and the werewolf's instincts were running wild. But Julia didn't listen. and she showed up, sobbing uncontrollably. Damien rushed towards her, asking what was wrong, and she managed to speak through her tears. Her parents wanted to marry her off to some guy she'd never met, and she was devastated. Damien was stunned. He had no idea things were that bad for her. Julia blamed him for her situation, saying that if he'd just hurried up with the drug development, she wouldn't be in this mess. Damien felt a pang of guilt. Now, as he stands in the woods, he can't help but wonder what would have happened if he'd just been faster, if he'd just been able to save her. Damien's trying to reassure Julia, saying he's not empty-handed. The instinct suppressant is almost complete. Julia's face lights up with excitement, and she asks if he won't turn into a wolf anymore. But then Damien's all caution, saying the suppressant isn't stable and needs more fine-tuning. Julia's not having it, though. She says he's being overly cautious and suggests they test it right now. Damien's taken aback, but Julia's not shaken. She says the best time to test it is when his instincts are at their peak, and that's right now under the blue moon. Damien's hesitant, saying he doesn't want Julia to be in danger if things go south. But Julia's emotional switch is flipped, and she's suddenly wailing on the ground, saying she thought she could trust him, but he wouldn't even care if she ended up marrying some delusional man and living a miserable life until she eventually dies. Damien's alarmed, saying he'd never want that for her. But Julia's got a crooked smile on her face, and it's clear she's manipulating him. What's going on here? Julia's supposed to be sweet and loving, but she's being super manipulative. Julia looks him dead in the eye, her expression a mix of desperation and despair. She asks if he wants her to be miserable, and tears start rolling down her cheeks. Damien's in a state of alarm, but eventually, he comes to a decision. He pulls Julia up and says he'll take the suppressant. He pulls out a vial from his pocket and tells Julia to run away the moment she feels unsafe. Damien gulps down the vial's contents, drops the glass vessel to the ground, and Julia asks how he feels. Damien's struggling to breathe, his body's burning up, and he's wondering if it's because of the blue moon. He falls to his knees, and just as he's trying to catch his breath, a rustling noise comes from the bushes behind him. A wolf emerges, snarling and ready to attack. Julia's terrified, and in a flash, the wolf leaps towards her. But just in time, another wolf intercepts it midair. It's Damien in his true form. The two wolves clash, and Julia's left staring in utter silence, her fear and shock rendering her speechless. She manages to whisper Damien's name, and the victorious but blood-stained Damien turns his attention to her, growling. Julia's scared out of her wits and takes off running, with Damien following close behind, begging her to wait up. He assures her he's in his right mind and not trying to hurt her, but she's too afraid to listen. She keeps running, begging him to stop following her, screaming at him to stay back and calling him a monster. They finally reach a cliff and Julia's got nowhere to go, but she keeps moving away, practically at the edge. She stumbles and Damien screams, stretching out his arm to catch her, but he fails. It's a memory that's scarred him ever since, and even now he looks back and blames himself for Julia's death. Tonight, Damien stands at the same cliff, out in the moonlight, reflecting on it all. Tears stream down his eyes as he relives the pain of that night. Just then, someone calls out his name with a loud voice from behind. He turns around and it's Olivia, running up to him with concern etched on her face. She embraces him, and for a moment, Damien feels a sense of comfort and peace. Right when he needs her, Olivia shows up, and it's like she's been sent to soothe his troubled soul. As they stand there, wrapped in each other's arms, Damien feels a weight lift off his shoulders. Maybe, just maybe, he's found someone who can help him heal and move on from his painful past. Damien's still trying to process how he ended up on the floor with Olivia, but she's already grilling him with questions. She wants to know why he was standing so close to the edge of the cliff, if he's suicidal, and she's bawling her eyes out. Damien's quick to reassure her that he's not suicidal, but Olivia's not buying it. She asks why he was running in the woods like someone was chasing him, and how he ended up at the cliff. Damien tries to downplay it, saying he just had a headache and was trying to walk it off, but Olivia's not convinced. Our girl, Olivia, is determined to get to the bottom of things. She's been noticing that Damien's been acting strangely lately, and she's worried about him. She asks him again why he was standing so close to the edge, and Damien finally opens up. With a sober look on his face, he reveals that the cliff is where Julia fell to her death. Olivia's taken aback, and she asks if he's still not over Julia. But Damien's quick to clarify that it's not what she thinks. He's not still pining for Julia. Instead, he's consumed by guilt and a sense of responsibility for her death. He says Julia was running away from him when it happened, and that's a burden he'll always carry. Olivia's curious, and she asks what he did to scare Julia so much. Damien hesitates, wondering why he's opening up to her like this. He's practically broken down, and he apologizes because he can't tell her the truth. Olivia's trying hard to be understanding, but she really wants to know what's going on. She looks him in the face and says she really wants to know. Damien asks why, and Olivia's memories flash before her eyes. They've shared some rare moments together, and she's just realizing that she genuinely cares about him deeply. The realization hits her hard, and she can't keep it inside. As they sit there on the floor, Olivia takes Damien's hand in hers. She looks into his eyes and says, "I care about you, Damien. I want to help you. Please tell me what's going on." Damien's taken aback by her words, but he's also touched. No one's ever shown him this kind of kindness and concern before. He looks at Olivia, and for a moment he considers opening up to her. But then he remembers the danger, the secrets, and the lies. He can't risk telling her the truth, not yet anyway. Olivia's pouring her heart out to Damien, telling him he means a lot to her and doesn't have to pretend everything's okay when they're together. She touches his hands with love and affection, and Damien's eyes light up. He's clearly moved by her words. Olivia asks him to open up and share what's really going on inside that head of his. She flashes him a hearty smile, and Damien's eyes widen in response. He starts by saying there's something about him she needs to know. He's not your average Joe. Olivia's curiosity is piqued, and she asks what he means by not ordinary. Damien hesitates, saying it's definitely strange, but he can't be more specific just yet. What he can say, though, is that Olivia's the reason he's still breathing. He locks hands with hers, and his eyes burn with intensity. Every breath he takes is hers, he says, and our girl's heart skips a beat. These are some deeply romantic words, and Olivia's not sure if she's ready for this level of emotional intimacy, but at the same time, she can't help but feel drawn to Damien's vulnerability and sincerity. Damien's carrying Olivia back to the manor, and she's asking him to put her down, but he's not having it. He's wondering what kind of human she is. Running through the dark woods out of concern for him, he notices the bruises on her legs and decides there's no way he's letting her walk back on those legs as he walks onward. Olivia's reflecting on their conversation at the cliff. He said he's not normal, but what did he actually mean? She can understand him being the CEO of TerraCure being a big deal, but something's definitely off. She doesn't think that's what he meant. Personally, she's observed some unusual things about him. His looks, for starters, are far from ordinary. She's also noticed that he's incredibly intelligent and resourceful, and there's something about him that just draws her in. She can't quite put her finger on it, but she feels a deep connection to him. Damien asks her to sit down for a moment, jolting her back to reality. He says he'd like to clean her wounds, and she's down for that. Olivia sits on a rock near a pool of water, takes off her shoes, and Damien removes his coat. He's really gentle with her, cleaning her wounds with care and precision. As he works, he starts up a conversation about his dad using her to test him. His father tried to see if Damien's really in love with Olivia or just substituting her for Julia. Damien says his father thinks he hasn't gotten over Julia, which is why he had Olivia stay in Julia's room and even gave her Julia's dress to wear. Damien assures Olivia that he doesn't see her as a substitute, and she believes him. She says it explains why he's been arguing with James so much, and she had her suspicions about his father too. Olivia understands it must have been frustrating for Damien not being able to tell her about it all along, and she pats him on the head gently. Damien looks at her with mischief in his eyes, then proceeds to peck her knee. Olivia shivers and trembles all over, clearly affected by his touch. The tension between them is palpable, and it's like the air is charged with electricity. Damien's eyes lock onto hers, and for a moment, they just stare at each other, the only sound being the gentle lapping of the water against the shore. Olivia's wondering what Damien's doing, and he claims he's just stopping the bleeding, but she's not buying it. He's kissing her after all. Damien's got a weird way of showing affection, but Olivia's not complaining. He says he wants to erase every scar from her body, and our girl's intrigued. Damien's face is inches from hers, and he's saying some pretty intense stuff, like how pain masks other pain. Olivia's taken aback, thinking that's some pretty deep stuff coming from the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. But before she can respond, Damien shuts her up with a kiss. In all honesty, Olivia knows Damien's strange, but she's into it. He's brushing her hair, and it's clear he's trying to imprint on her, to keep her safe. He's dead serious about it too. He'll do it even if it leads to his own death. But when Olivia cries out in pain, Damien pauses. There's a scar on her neck. He asks what's wrong, and our girl explains she must have gotten cut on a branch on her way up. Damien's apologetic, blaming himself for her pain. He's been saying he'd protect her, but all he's done is hurt her time and again. Damien's torn. He doesn't want to hurt Olivia, but he also can't bear the thought of losing her. Imprinting on her might cause her pain, but not imprinting might put her in danger. He's battling with decision-making, but ultimately he decides to hug her instead. He's made up his mind. He'll reveal what he is to Olivia, and let her decide whether she wants to be with him or not. It's a risk, but he's willing to take it. Damien's had enough of hiding his true self, and he's ready to face whatever consequences come his way. He's tired of living a lie, tired of pretending to be something he's not. Back at the manor, the butler's got an update on Miss Olivia and Damien, and it's a doozy. It's been confirmed that Olivia's got the same ability as Julia, and James is freaking out, thinking she's a threat to Damien's safety. But here's the thing, James actually seems to care about his son's well-being, which is kinda surprising. The butler drops another bombshell. Olivia saved Damien's life, throwing herself in harm's way to protect him. James is startled, glancing at little Luna as he tries to process this new info. The butler's observation is that Olivia's different from Julia. Instead of putting Damien in danger, she saved him. James is left speechless, realizing that maybe Olivia isn't just a Julia substitute after all. He asks the butler if he's certain about what he saw, and the butler confirms it. James is pondering the implications, thinking back to how sincere Olivia's concern for Damien seemed earlier. Just then, the door bursts open, and in walk Damien and Olivia, with Luna in tow. Mother and daughter share a warm hug. And Olivia apologizes for keeping Luna waiting. But Luna's not bothered, saying she got to eat tons of yummy food, so it's all good. James watches the trio, and for a moment they look like a loving family. He can't remember the last time he saw his son smiling and glowing like this. He calls out to Damien, asking for a word, and suggests Olivia and Luna go relax. The butler offers to show them to their room, and the two of them head out. As Olivia leaves, she glances back at Damien and his father, wondering what James wants to talk to him about. Is he going to finally accept her as Damien's partner? Or is there something more sinister brewing? James is having a heart-to-heart with his son, and it's getting real. He says Damien was a mess after Julia's passing, but he's not the same anymore. Damien credits Olivia for the change, saying she's been the turning point in his life. James is curious, asking what's so special about her. Damien gushes about how she saved him from going over the edge of the cliff and encouraged him to be honest with himself. James raises an eyebrow. Thinking it's cheesy for a human to talk about honesty when they lie so often, Damien calls out his dad, saying he appreciates the little talk, but it's more than his father has ever done for him. James is speechless, and Damien drops another bombshell. He feels like everyone's out to exploit him, including his own dad. James defends himself, saying he did it all for Damien's good. But Damien's not buying it, at least not entirely. James knows Olivia's got the same powers as Julia, and that's a major concern. He'd rather test some human than watch his son die. Despite his tough exterior, it's clear James cares deeply for his son. Damien acknowledges that he hit rock bottom because he pushed too hard testing the drug. But James thinks it's because Julia swayed him. They need to make sure that never happens again. Damien's made up his mind to stay away from Olivia on the day of the blue moon, but he knows there's a high chance she'll leave him anyway when she finds out the truth. James is shocked, worrying that Olivia will leak the secret to the press, but Damien assures him she'd never do that. If she decides to stay, then he can move forward with plans to develop a new drug. As James knows, a potent poison can become a strong medicine. James is impressed with Damien's cleverness, realizing his son had a plan all along. Damien warns his dad that if he gets rid of Olivia, he'll lose the chance to actualize his plans. James is still skeptical, thinking there's a probability Damien's lying to protect Olivia, but Damien's not having it, saying he's not naive to lie about something he's certain his dad will find out eventually. Damien demands that his father apologize to Olivia, and James is taken aback by his son's audacity. Damien doesn't care what his father thinks, and he storms out, slamming the door behind him. The boss sits back, thinking about his next move. He's not sure what to make of Damien's newfound confidence and determination. Meanwhile, it's a new day, and Damien, Olivia, and Luna are ready to leave. Damien looks like he's been up all night. Those dark circles under his eyes are a dead giveaway. He's managed to distract James by focusing on the new drug, but he knows his father's unpredictable, so there's still a chance he'll harm Olivia. As they're leaving, James apologizes for his behavior yesterday, saying he did it out of concern for his son. He pleads for Olivia's forgiveness, and she graciously accepts, saying it's fine, she wasn't hurt or anything. Damien's wondering if he was too worried after all. James walks up to him, tells his son to focus on developing the new drug, and proposes a truce, sealing it with a handshake. Damien's skeptical, but he shakes his father's hand, telling him he won't let him down. He calls out to Olivia, and they get in their car ready to zoom off. James is still staring out at the distance, lost in thought as he reflects on his son's words. He's thinking about how sometimes poison can become strong medicine in the right hands, and he's got to admit, Damien's got a point. He's still trying to wrap his head around the fact that his son might actually reveal his true identity soon, especially with the blue moon fast approaching. Time will tell. Indeed. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Terracure building, where Damien's meeting up with Olivia. He's surprised she came around, but she says she's here for Luna, who's having another test done today. Damien takes a seat beside her and asks who recommended the test this time around. She mentions it's the doctor she met at the lab the other time she came around. Damien's intrigued, saying he didn't hear about it before now and would have sent his assistant instead. He's worried it might have stirred up some unpleasant memories for Olivia. Especially after their encounter in the lab hallway, Damien apologizes for his behavior back then, saying he wasn't himself and had no intention of hurting her feelings. Olivia takes a sip of her tea, saying he looked really distressed that day, and she'll take his word for it that it was a mistake only if he's honest with her and answers one question. Olivia's curious, asking why he got hurt that day and if it's all right. He tells her now. Damien explains that he was high on painkillers and got into a fight that day. Olivia's surprised, asking if he's still taking pills like that, and Damien confirms it's because of the disease mentioned in the news article. Olivia's eyes widen in understanding, and she asks if this is what he meant when he said he wasn't an ordinary person. Damien's taken aback, staring into nothingness for a moment before responding. The tension's palpable, and it's clear that Damien's struggling to open up about his secrets. Our girl quickly realizes her statement sounds like she's cornering him, and that's not her intention, so she touches him gently and says it's okay, he's just the way he is, and she accepts him for who he is. He can be himself when he's with her. Our girl's so caring, and Damien appreciates her for being so sweet, but deep down, he's worried she'll not hold him like this when she learns the truth. This thought troubles him deeply. He'd planned to confess after solving the mystery of the wolf case from the church the other day, but he's not made any progress with the investigation, and deep down, our male lead is a little relieved. It's weird because it's all mysterious. But when he holds on to Olivia, all the cares in the world somewhat fade. They've switched to a different location, and now they're in Damien's office, where he informs Olivia they're throwing a charity party to mark TerraCure's founding anniversary in a few weeks. It's a pretty big occasion for their family and their company. It's practically the highlight of the year, known to attract the attention of everyone from the business world to politics and even entertainment. Olivia says it sounds amazing, but she's still curious to know why he'd invited her to his office and what the charity party has to do with her, and that's when he drops the bombshell. Offering to have her host the party, she's stunned. It's unexpected. After all, it's such a huge event. Damien assures her he'll be helping out with the preparations, but unfortunately though, he won't be able to attend. He's got a prior commitment he just can't cancel. He's certain her showing up at the event alone will raise eyebrows and possibly bad press, so he'd rather have her as a host. Our girl accepts the responsibility, and Damien's relieved, but little does he know, this charity party is going to be a game changer for all of them. Damien's being super helpful, offering to lend a hand in any way he can to make sure the event's a massive success. And let's be real, they do make a pretty awesome team. Olivia's still on cloud 9. She can't believe she's actually going to be hosting a party, and not just any party, a grand, glamorous, and utterly glorious one. Olivia's dishing out all the deets to Sarah about the upcoming charity party, and she's feeling a tad overwhelmed. It's a big deal, and she's not sure she's got what it takes. After all, her party planning experience is limited to her high school prom. Sarah's listening intently, her eyes wide with excitement. She's always been the party-loving type, and Olivia's grateful to have her as a friend. Sarah's energy is infectious, and Olivia's starting to feel a little better. Maybe this party thing won't be so bad after all. Sarah's bouncing up and down, excitedly talking about dresses and decorations, and Olivia's laughing, feeling a little more at ease. Sarah's aura switches up, and she's all jovial and curious, asking about Olivia's relationship with Damien. Olivia's blushing a little, feeling a little self-conscious. But Sarah's just being her usual nosy self. Olivia's used to it, and she's not bothered. She's happy to share some details, but not too much. She's still getting used to the whole fake engagement thing, and she's not sure how much to reveal. Sarah's thinking to herself that Damien's probably planning to go wild during the blue moon, downing a bunch of ISPs and losing control. It's no secret to the wolves that he goes off the rails during this time, but she keeps all this to herself, instead choosing to boost Olivia's confidence and assure her she's got her back. She's got a plan to make sure Damien pays up for her help later. Though, the scene shifts to an unfamiliar building, where a phone rings and is picked up by Father Lowell, who's on the receiving end of a call from Olivia. She's asking how he's been, saying she's been worried about him since the church was closed and she didn't get his number. Father Lowell appreciates her kind words, saying God has been watching over him, so he's doing all right, Olivia asks after the priest who was with him that day. And Father Lowell assures her he's doing well. He's holding a book with Olivia and Damien's picture on it, and he mentions he's aware Olivia's been pretty busy lately. She immediately offers him an invitation to the charity party and asks where to send it. Since she doesn't know his whereabouts, Father Lowell says she should send it to Max. Max Reynolds, the journalist. He'll get the invitation from him, and he politely requests 2 invites. They end their call, and Father Lowell speaks to his friends, saying it's easy to get things done once trust has been established. His guy asks if all this is necessary, suggesting they could just wipe out all the betas if they wanted to, but Father Lowell says they shouldn't draw too much attention to it. They already know how to handle them. It's been confirmed that Damien's going to be stuck in the kennel all day, and Father Lowell reveals their main objective is the kidnapping. His guy's getting a little anxious, asking how Father Lowell plans on getting that invitation, and if he's really going to bring Max, the human journalist, over. Father Lowell's got a plan. Though, he's going to assign Max another task, a very important one, and he's got a sly look on his face, like a villain plotting his next move. The day before the charity party, Max finds himself at the church, standing against a wall, breathing heavily, trying to get his bearings. He looks around, wondering what's going on, and notices other people in the building, who seem to sense someone's presence and are preparing to go take a look. The priest had asked Max to bring the invitations, but now he's nowhere to be found. And to make matters more confusing, Max sees Damien Brown's secretary here, which makes him wonder if the church is somehow connected to the TerraCure. But it looks like a normal, humble church, nothing out of the ordinary. As the guys gradually approach him, checking around, Max starts to feel severely bothered, thinking he's going to get caught. He wonders if he can slip out the back door. But before he can make a move, Russell and his guy hear noises from outside. Someone's out there, and they both decide to check it out, dashing off to investigate. Max is saved. Whoever distracted them has simultaneously rescued him. He's decided to forget about the invitations and just get out of there, but as he's making his escape, the invitation slips from his hand and falls to the ground. He gets down on his knees to pick it up, but something catches his attention. He looks at the ground and sees drag marks. Max wonders what it could be. He attempts to push the big wooden figure, and to his amazement, a doorway leading underground opens up. He's stunned. It wasn't just some small, humble church after all. The blue moon is fast approaching, and Damien's feeling the effects. His headache's getting worse, and he knows he needs to head back to the hotel once dawn breaks, but for now, he's standing there, looking up at the moon, lost in thought, when suddenly, he pauses, noticing Olivia dozing on the office sofa. He wonders if she's been working till this hour. She did say she isn't used to parties. It's no wonder she's feeling overwhelmed. Damien's eyes soften as he looks at her. He can't help but feel a pang of concern. He knows how much pressure she's under, and he wants to help her, but he's not sure how. Our guy kneels in front of her, attempting to touch her, but she wakes up just as his hands are about to make contact. He apologizes for waking her, and she rubs her eye, saying she's all right. Damien asks if she's been losing sleep since he told her about the event, and Olivia confirms she's being overambitious. She just wants to do a good job. She laughs, saying she'll have so much fun at the party. He'll wish he made it. Damien's smiling, saying he's jealous of the lucky ones who'll get to see her tomorrow. He's looking at her with such admiration, and Olivia's cheeks are flushing. She's not used to this kind of attention. Olivia asks if he means the party is going to be fantastic, and he says yes, telling her to go to bed since she's got a busy day ahead. They say their goodbyes as Olivia steps out. Damien's watching her go, thinking she's really putting in her best. He hopes everything goes smoothly. He stares out into the open sky. The moon is shining so bright. He has high hopes for the charity party, but for some reason, he's nervous. And we all know why. The blue moon is looming, and Damien's got a secret to keep. Max is walking down the passage, trying to figure out where it leads. He's been walking for what feels like forever, and he's starting to get a little anxious. But then he halts in his tracks. Sighting a figure ahead, it's Father Lowell, who's asking if Max brought the invitations he requested. The journalist is stunned, wondering how Lowell got here. Father Lowell's all smiles, saying Max made it to the right place after all. But Max is skeptical. He's got a ton of questions. Like, what's Father Lowell and the Terracure scheming? And who exactly is Lowell anyway? The priest bursts into horrendous laughter, commending the journalist for his wild imagination, saying it's no wonder he's in the business of chasing celebrities. He takes off his glasses, and now he's got a tone of insanity in his eyes, saying the guys outside, Terracure's people, don't have a clue what he's scheming. After all, he, Father Lowell, built this passage himself. Max is intrigued, asking why he'd do that, but the priest says he won't spill. The journey here wouldn't be worth it if he did. Instead, he's got something for Max. Another figure appears afar off, and Max enters a state of alarm. He can't believe his eyes. It's someone he'd never imagined he'll come across, especially not here. It's Tommy, and Max is shocked. Russell and his guy are on the case, checking out the site underground, trying to track down the source of a super potent smell. The secretary's got his detective hat on, scouring the area, but it's the faint scent that's really bugging him. He's convinced it's Silas. His guy's on the same page, saying whoever distracted them earlier must be hiding down here. Luring them into a trap? Russell's staring at his phone, confirming there's no signal, and he's wondering why the guy who lured them would take such a risk. His guy suggests they search the whole place, and Russell's all, let's do this. They're not alone, they've got a whole crew of guys with them. The ones who are supposed to be at tomorrow's party, and they're ready to take on whatever's down here. They're turning the place inside out, cell after cell, but nothing's turning up, until someone shouts out that they've found something. It's a dead wolf. Russell walks up to the corpse, and there's this beeping noise coming from it. He inspects it, opening its mouth, and that's when he sees it. A whole lot of dynamite. It's a trap. He shouts to his guys to run, but it's too late. The place erupts in a massive explosion. Boom! It's like the whole underground is shaking. It's the big day, the blue moon is shining bright, and Olivia's stepping into the scene, looking absolutely stunning in her beautiful green dress. The murmurs and gasps are deafening. Everyone's talking about Olivia Moore, Damian Brown's gorgeous fiancée, the single mom who's stealing the show. Her outfit is more than amazing, and she's rocking it with confidence. Luna's by her side, and the little girl's saying her mom's a princess, and she should smile more. It's adorable. And Olivia's beaming with pride. She's taking it all in, enjoying the attention, but also feeling a little overwhelmed. It's a lot to take in, but she's handling it like a pro. Someone screams Olivia's name, and it's her bestie, Sarah, who's complimenting our girl and getting appreciated in return for all her support. Sarah's saying the party's really classy, and she can't believe it's Olivia's first time hosting. Olivia's laughing, saying Sarah's too kind, but Sarah's insisting it's the truth, and she's not like some people. Cough, Damien. Cough, who shall remain nameless. They're walking around, chatting about the party, and Olivia's a little nervous, but Sarah's telling her to chill. Everyone's eager to see her, and that's why they've got such a huge crowd. Olivia's feeling a little more at ease. A young lady walks up to Olivia, looking super shy and practically trembling. She's saying she manages Olivia's fan account and shows her cell phone before asking for a photograph. Olivia's new to all this, so she's asking for more info, and the young lady's practically worshipping her, showering her with praise. Sarah's saying it's fine to oblige and take a picture, Since the young lady wants it so badly, more people are coming up, asking for photographs and autographs. It's chaos. But Olivia's handling it like a pro. Someone randomly shines a light on Olivia, and it catches her off guard. A young man's questioning her about her relationship with Damian Brown, asking why he's not here. And if it's true their relationship has gone sour, Olivia's covering her face, saying it's not true. But Sarah's cutting her short, saying she doesn't have to answer his question. Sarah's got Olivia's back, and she's not letting anyone get under her skin. Sarah's taking charge, grabbing hold of the camera and calling security to escort the young guy out immediately. She's got a firm grip on his arm and he's trying to wriggle free. Asking how she's so strong, but Sarah's not having it. She's demanding that they wipe the camera clean of any data before he leaves the venue. A security guard approaches her, apologizing for the inconvenience, and Sarah's asking about the security detail for today's party and Russell's whereabouts, the guards informing her that Russell's out of reach. And the news is grabbing her by surprise. The head of security, along with all the men he took with him, are nowhere to be found. It's like they vanished into thin air. The guards telling her they've got a situation with a shortage of staff, so they couldn't send out a search party, and now they're practically just stuck waiting and hoping all is well. Sarah's saying the information is coming really late to her, but not to worry. She'll check it out by herself. She's taking matters into her own hands. And she's not going to let anything ruin Olivia's big day. Afar off, Olivia's staring on, wondering if there's a problem with the party. Someone's walking up to her from behind, calling on our girl. It's Gloria Hill from the Single Mother Support Center. They're exchanging greetings, and Olivia's smiling, trying to play it cool, but she's also a little worried. An announcer is picking up the microphone, calling the attention of everyone around. The spotlight's shining on Olivia, and she's being invited to the podium. She's welcomed with a round of applause, and she's taking her place, trying to soak it all in, back at Damian's place. He's laying in his indoor cell, back against the wall. A bottle of drugs toppled over, and his phone's laying on the floor, vibrating. But he's unresponsive, he's out cold, and it's unclear what's going on. Is he okay? Or is something more sinister at play? Damian's phone is vibrating repeatedly, and finally he opens his eyes, stretching out his hands weakly to pick up his cell. He's got 3 messages from Russell, and they're super short, but they're packed with info, church, dungeon, trap, Silas, that's all. Damian's shocked. His eyes are scanning the messages, trying to make sense of them. And just as he's processing everything, a call comes in. It's Sarah on the line. She's informing him she's not been able to reach Russell, and she's updating him on the situation with the party security being understaffed because Russell took all the men with him. Sarah's apologizing for bothering him. She knows why he's not at the party, but Damian's not even listening. All he can think of is Olivia. He drops his cell and gets up on his feet. Sarah's calling to him on the phone, but he's not responding. He's trying to put the pieces together in his head. And finally, he comes to a conclusion. It's Silas. He's been after Olivia this whole time, and Damian's spot on. He's practically staggering right now, holding on to the steel cell bars for support. He knows if he just transforms into a wolf, he could protect Olivia, but something's stopping him. If he leaves here as a wolf, it could end really badly. History could repeat itself. He's haunted by the memory of losing Julia. It's a problem. A big, big problem. Damian's stuck. He doesn't know what to do, but he knows he's got to protect Olivia, no matter what. It's the charity party venue, and Silas and Father Lowell are both lurking around. Lowell asks if Silas has taken care of the guys, and Silas confirms he has. Showing him the bodies of the unconscious men laying waste in a room close by, Silas asks if all of this was really necessary. He's certain he could have handled it all on his own. But Father Lowell's not having it. He walks up to Silas, tells him not to get cocky, reminds him that they're going up against Damian Brown, so he shouldn't let his guard down. They can't afford a moment's lapse. Silas asks if Father Lowell's harboring a long-standing grudge against Damian, and Lowell flinches at his words. Silas states his theory about the whole thing, guessing it's a revenge plot for a parent or possibly a sibling, or it's just out of spite for Damian Brown. Father Lowell claims it's instinct that's driving him. Pure wolf instinct to overthrow the weaker alpha? What a way to put it. Silas laughs. Viewing Lowell's methods as unconventional for someone who claims it's instinct backing his actions, Lowell scoffs at him, says he's a little disappointed Silas doesn't know a lot. He's not about to teach him everything from scratch. After all, Silas was raised like royalty in the Brown household. Silas is visibly upset with the statement, but Lowell calms him down, pats him on the shoulder, and he cools off. Meanwhile, back at the party, Olivia's speech is about to end. She's talking about her late husband and the difficulties she's faced as a single parent, but luckily for her, she's been privileged to meet people, good people who cared for her well-being and mended her wounded heart. Because of these loving people, a sense of joy has slowly crept back into her heart, and she hopes in her heart that this event brings a light to those going through a dark time. Beautiful speech. She takes her time to appreciate each and everyone for their support. Thanks the Single Mother Support Center especially, and above all, she thanks Damian. The crowd erupts in applause, and Olivia's smiling, feeling grateful and relieved. But little does she know, danger's lurking around the corner. just as Olivia's wrapping up her speech, the door creaks open from behind them, and chaos erupts. Someone screams at the top of their lungs and pandemonium breaks out. It's a wolf. And it's not alone. Panic sets in. Olivia's eyes widen in horror, and Sarah springs into action. Alert and ready to defend her friend, the hall descends into chaos. People running wildly in all directions, screaming and crying. Olivia's frantically searching for Luna, calling out her name, but she can't seem to find her. Her friend's got Luna, though, and she's calling out to Olivia. Olivia's friend takes Luna, who's wailing and calling out for her mom. Sarah watches as they make their way out, and then she turns her attention back to the chaos unfolding around her. She's noticed something weird, though. These wolves smell just like them. What kind of monster would unleash this kind of terror in the heart of New York City? And just as she's wondering, the culprit steps forward. It's a familiar face, one that makes Sarah's eyes widen in shock. It's Silas. And he's making a bold statement, one that's going to have major consequences, especially in the heart of New York City, where the unthinkable has just happened. Sarah and Silas are having a standoff. She's asking him if he's gone insane, unleashing this chaos in front of all these humans. But Silas just smiles, orders his betas to take her out. Sarah's demanding some answers, and it's dawning on her. She can't believe it. Is it possible? Could it really be? Is Silas's target really Olivia, the beta's attack? But Sarah's not going down without a fight, even in her human form. She strikes one wolf with the palm of her hand, sending it flying. But there are more where that came from, and it's definitely going to be a hassle. Her claws grow out as she prepares to defend herself. Meanwhile, Silas is walking up to Olivia. She recognizes him and calls him father, but Silas scoffs at her, says he's not a priest, our girl's figuring it's a problem, he's laughing, and she starts to draw away slowly, asking him to stay back as she staggers on, but Silas pulls her closer with brute force, hands her a black piece of cloth she gave him the last time, but Olivia's not having it. She strikes it off his hands, refuses to collect it. A loud crashing sound draws her attention towards Sarah's position. She's on the ground being dragged by a wolf. Olivia's not having this whole humiliation. She knows it's the blue moon, but having this mutt drag her friend around is pissing her off really bad. She kicks the wolf hard across the face and wonders, what's the issue with these wolves? They look like regular betas, but something's off. The aura they're giving off is nothing short of bloodlust and a deep fearlessness. A wolf leaps towards her with ferocity. Sarah's ready to defend herself, but she's not sure what she's up against. These wolves are different, and she's going to have to use all her skills to take them down. The question is, can she do it, or will she become their next victim? The wolf leaps towards Sarah, but it's caught in midair by a bigger wolf. It's Damien, and he's not messing around. One strike and that beta's down for the count. Silas is shocked. He wasn't expecting Damien to show up, especially not after being locked up. But Damien's just laughing, saying he wants Olivia even more now. She's screaming at him to let her go, trying to loosen his grip, but he's not having it. The big dark wolf steps closer to them. Silas is saying he's amazed it's coming for him already, but he's not going down without a fight. He's got his betas to back him up, and they attack Damien, but he's taking them down one by one. Olivia's watching in awe. She can't make sense of the whole scenario, but she's not going to let this opportunity slip away. She decides to make a break for it. Silas is hot on her heels, determined not to let her escape. He almost grabs her again, but she stumbles on her heels and falls backwards. In the blink of an eye, there's swift movement around her, and she falls onto the side of the wolf. He prevents her from falling all the way. She's stunned, questioning what just happened. Did this wolf really just save her? It stares her in the face, and she's frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Damien's battling with his conscience. Julia's clouding his mind, blaming him for her death, calling him a monster. He's telling himself the truth. Julia's gone, but he can't shake off the feeling that he's a monster. Someone screams his name, and he looks around, his eyes are teary, and he sees Olivia. He recalls her telling him how important he is to her, and it's been this way. Every time he's down, every time he sinks into the abyss, Olivia's the one who pulls him back up. She's his lifeline, and he's not going to let anything happen to her. Olivia's the beacon of light in Damien's dark world, and he's making a decision. If it means protecting her, he'll unleash the monster within. He's transforming and dashing out, leaving all his emotional baggage behind. Olivia's wondering if this wolf really just saved her. Silas is calling it pathetic, saying Damien's in no shape to take him down. He transforms into a wolf, and Olivia's eyes widen in shock. She can't believe what she just saw. A man turning into a wolf right before her eyes. Sarah's screaming at her to get out of there, but Olivia's frozen in place, her eyes fixed on the battling wolves. Sarah's calling out to her again, but she's not moving. She's too shocked, too amazed. The battle between the wolves is intense, gruesome even. Sarah's shocked by the sight. Silas has the upper hand, pinning Damien down. Olivia's concerned, she can't explain it, but she's not happy with the wolf losing the battle. Silas flings a bruised and bloodied Damien in her direction, and she gasps for air, gripped with fear. Silas attempts to finish Damien off, but just in time, another wolf intervenes. It's Sarah Brown. They have a standoff. Olivia walks up to the injured wolf, blaming herself for his condition. She knows she should escape, but she can't leave. Not like this. She rips a portion of her dress and covers up the wounds on the wolf. It growls and trembles, but she tries to calm it down, saying she means no harm. Their eyes connect, and there's something about this wolf that Olivia can't explain. It's like her heart is aching with longing. She recalls meeting this wolf before, but it was just a dream, or was it? She wonders if that dream stirred up emotions, but it's more than that. She feels a deep connection to this wolf. Her eyes meet his, and she sees Damien in those eyes. Olivia's stunned. Could it really be? Is this wolf really Damien? She's searching his eyes for answers, and what she sees there takes her breath away. Olivia's friend walks into the party venue, calling out for Sarah and her friend, wondering what's taking them so long. She notices some men in suits standing ahead and assumes they're security. She approaches them, asking if they could help her check if anyone's still inside, but as they turn in her direction, a chill runs down her spine. She wonders if they're not security guards. Then why are they still here, looking all shady and suspicious? Someone grabs her by the shoulder, pleading with her to stand back. It's Russell, Damien's secretary. He warns her that the men ahead are dangerous. She recognizes him, but he looks a bit worse for wear. She asks what happened to his face, but he doesn't get into the details. Instead, he steps forward, ready to take on the suspicious men, assuring her he'll deal with them. But the lady's not so sure. She thinks he looks a bit unreliable. She asks if he's certain he can handle them all. Father Lowell scoffs in disbelief, saying he thought Russell was dead from the explosion, but Russell's not having it. He says they'll all meet their maker much sooner than he will. Spitting in disgust at their treachery, Lowell promises to finish him off properly this time around and slowly begins to transform. The lady watches on in shock as the mystery unfolds before her eyes. She turns to Russell, wanting them both to make a run for it, but she's met with another shock. Russell transforms right in front of her. She's trembling. The wolves all stand across from each other. It's a standoff. Things are about to get rough. The lady's caught in the middle, unsure of what to do next. Olivia's eyes lock onto the wolf, and she knows it's gotta be him, Damien. The realization hits her like a ton of bricks. She remembers back to their conversation in the woods. When he said he's not an ordinary person, and now it all makes sense, the wolf's back on his feet, and he's treading forward towards Silas. The two lock eyes and Silas flinches. Something's off. He's got a bad feeling, but he waves it off. He's confident he can take Damien down. Silas leaps towards Damien with bloodthirsty intent, but our guy dodges the assault and strikes back. Silas is caught off guard. He's confused. He was certain Damien was dying. So how is he suddenly so energetic and powerful? And then it hits him. This must be what Turner meant by Olivia's power. Damien stands victorious over a wounded Silas, and he strides towards Olivia. She touches him without fear, smiles, and thanks him for saving her. He sits in front of her, and she asks if he wants her to ride on his back. Damien nods, and Olivia gets on. They leave together, the wind blowing through their hair, back at Damien's place. He transforms into his human form. Olivia sits on the floor, reflecting on all that's happened that day. Damien's standing with his back turned, staring out at the moon. He says he's got a confession to make, and Olivia's curiosity is piqued. He takes a deep breath and says it. I'm a werewolf. Olivia stares up at him, her eyes wide with shock. It's really true. Damien's a werewolf, and from now on, things can never be the same again. The revelation hangs in the air, heavy with implications, and Olivia's not sure what to do next. But she knows one thing. Her life just got a whole lot more interesting. Damien is tired of hiding the truth, and finally tells Olivia his biggest secret. He is a werewolf. The girl looks shocked and speechless. Her silence makes him panic, and he regrets hiding the truth. He steps away from her, too nervous to explain himself. He was terrified she might push him away once she knew everything. He feels embarrassed about his true identity. They are just mindless monsters who tear each other apart. He was too ashamed to admit he is one of them. The man makes a decision and tells Olivia to move out after this mess is solved. The girl isn't expecting to hear that and asks him to explain himself. The man is sure she would want to leave him, so he is helping her escape. Our heroine is disappointed. Did he really think she would leave just because she found out he is a werewolf? Well, Damien really thought that way. The girl is annoyed by his behavior and stands up. She steps closer as she calls him out for being selfish. He always makes all the decisions without asking for her opinions. The man nervously steps away, but Olivia moves even closer. She is tired of him drawing the lines and running away from her. She complains about the way he treats her like a toy. Damien is frightened by her question and quickly denies it. The girl wants to know why he hid the truth. She just needs a simple explanation from him, but Damien looks away and refuses to say anything. His silence disappoints Olivia, and she tells him to forget everything. She's about to leave, which makes him panic. He grabs her hand and finally admits he was afraid to lose her. His answer leaves the girl shocked. Damien finally opens up to Olivia. He had spent years trying to live a normal life. Werewolves are required to take suppressants so they can live among humans. Because he had hurt someone before, he always took more of the drugs than anyone else. The side effects were always terrible, but everything changed when he met Olivia. The girl clearly has no idea what he is talking about, so Damien reveals her ability to heal werewolves. He confesses that he first approached her just to use her powers. But after spending time with her, he fell in love with her honesty and kindness. Everything about the girl always amazes him. Our male lead knows he is being selfish, but he really wants to stay by Olivia's side. He would rather have her hatred than lose her for good. He steps closer and tells her she will never be a toy. The man blushes as he admits he is in love with her. Our heroine feels relieved. During the time she spent with Damien, he had always felt so distant. She always wished he would show her something more than kindness, but she always ended up disappointed. Now she finally understands why he stayed away. The girl is happy because her only wish is to stay by his side without any secrets. She turns around to smile at him and finally admits she also loves him. The man almost cries as she thanks him for saving her. She praises his bravery for telling her the truth. Damien is touched and hugs her tightly. He apologizes for always assuming the worst and is ready to tell her everything about him. While the two are enjoying some couple time, a group of people gather in an abandoned building. The leader stares at the man tied up in a chair and tells him to start talking. The captive looks up and we see it is Lowell Turner. The men gather around Turner and order him to speak. The man refuses to say a word. He will only obey them when they take over Terracure and capture Silas. The men try to spin it like they are helping him, but he exposes them. They are the ones drooling over Terracure. The leader feels insulted, but Turner says he has no use if he can't handle Damien. The other werewolves are annoyed and immediately attack him. He falls over but doesn't stop scolding them. While they are wasting time, Damien has found something bigger than Terracure and ISP. He tells them the man now has a secret weapon. Minson is shocked when the news claims the wolves that attacked them are from the zoo. The girl is sure she saw some shapeshifters. Her yell attracts Luna, and now the child is also curious. The woman looks back and sees Russell behind them. She is terrified and prays Olivia returns quickly. They need to get out of here. Right on cue, our heroine rushes in, looking for her girls. Luna runs to her mother and they share a warm hug. But Minsoon has no time for that. She pulls her friend away and says they have to escape. She reveals that these men aren't normal. She expects her friend to panic, but Olivia admits she knows everything. Minsoon jumps around in shock and almost calls the men werewolves. Our heroine immediately covers her mouth and pulls her friend away. Russell wonders how his boss feels under the blue moon. Damien says he feels relieved and is sure it is because of Olivia. The men still can't believe they fell for the trap at the temple. Just then, our male lead receives a call. He hears a mocking voice asking him to guess where they are. Damien thinks they are at Terracure, and he is right. The woman says they have no reason to obey him anymore. She glances to the side where Silas is tied up. She tells Damien his drugs have the worst side effects and he can't even control his brother. Because of that, the family heads have called an emergency meeting. She orders him to attend if he still wants to see Silas. Damien is furious and ends the call. He updates Russell, who wonders if the werewolves have all lost their minds. He is worried about Aiden, but there is no need. The door opens and the doctor appears with his large boxes. Damien is alone in his room. He is thinking about the call and is happy that Aiden escaped. But they still have a huge problem. The family heads have never liked ISP, so if they want to remain in control, they need to create a new version. The man has just taken off his shirt when he hears someone knocking. Olivia steps in and immediately turns red when she sees his delicious back muscles. She looks away quickly and starts talking about Terracure. She has no idea the man is approaching, and he suddenly hugs her. He is very happy to see her concern for him and thanks her. Olivia is feeling shy but can still tell something is wrong. Damien explains that the family heads are rebelling. He knows they would calm down if he creates another stable drug, but he doesn't want to use Olivia. He looks shocked when the girl offers to help. She is eager to begin, but the man suddenly carries her and heads towards the bed. She reminds him they have an important drug to make, but he claims he is working on it. Well, we would like to see how, because right now they are both lying together in the bed. Damien has a good excuse. He claims her power only works when she feels good, making her give off a sweet scent. The girl doesn't really believe him, but he gives her no choice. He kisses her all over, telling her not to be afraid. He promises to make her happy and never hurt her. The girl loves his caring attitude and decides to reward him with another kiss. Something feels different this time, but the two enjoy the feeling. Damien admires his woman and wishes she knew how much he wants her. The next morning, Damien is worried his woman might be too tired. She complains about the many rounds they had and is sure they must have done a lot of testing. The man finally admits it was just an excuse. Before she gets angry, he kisses her hand and reminds her she also enjoyed the feeling. Olivia is embarrassed to have her thoughts exposed. She says she is going to see Luna, but she doesn't move for a long time. Damien calls her name and she finally looks back. The girl was wondering if she could use her powers to cure her daughter. The man is upset and promises to help her find a way. Olivia updates Minsun about the experiments, but her friend gives her a suggestive look. She is sure something else is happening. Our heroine is guilty and quickly looks away. Her friend points out her red face, but our girl claims the tea is too hot. Minsun smiles and is glad to see Olivia happy. She praises the couple but is still shocked about the men's secret. Olivia admits she was also surprised, but it doesn't change her feelings for Damien. Minsun is impressed and starts to dream about their wedding. Luna hears the word and immediately becomes active. She asks Olivia 100 questions while her mother tries to deny everything. She finally admits they just started dating. Her friend isn't impressed. She thinks the man should act like a CEO and make some bold moves. She role-plays with Luna and the two girls laugh crazily. Unfortunately, they are caught in the act as Damien himself walks in. Olivia is nervous, but thankfully the man didn't hear their conversation. Instead, he has something important to tell her. The two head to a private place and Olivia is worried something might have happened. The man says everything is fine, but his next request leaves her shocked. He wants to meet her parents. Olivia is shocked by this sudden request. She stands there in silence and even starts to panic. Damien interrupts her meltdown, but the girl is still nervous. She thinks he heard Minsun's request and tells him to forget everything. The man can tell she is upset. She gets this strange look whenever her mind is a mess. The girl explains that talking about her parents makes her sensitive because they are both dead. Damien feels bad for upsetting her, but he has important news. During their last experiment, they found something in her that looks similar to what they found in Luna. He believes this is a clue about her illness. Olivia gets excited when she hears her daughter might be saved. She begins to cry, which makes Damien feel bad. He only wanted to talk about her parents, but he ended up making her upset. The girl apologizes for overreacting. She offers to visit the foster center with him and find more information about her parents. She believes everything will be fine since Damien is by her side. Well, the girl quickly regrets her words. She is still outside the building, but she is already nervous. The door opens and the director appears. Olivia is nervous to meet the woman again. The director has heard a lot about her because she's always on the news. Our heroine laughs nervously. The woman offers to show them around and they step inside. Olivia knows how much the director loves this place. She would never show them the records willingly. She tries to explain, but the woman interrupts her. She says Olivia is now a sponsor, so she doesn't need her permission. Our girl stands there in shock and wonders how she became a sponsor. The woman tells her to ask Damien. The man looks guilty as he admits he has been making donations to the foster home in her name. The two are alone, but Damien is still explaining himself. He tells her donating is the easiest way because they can now access the records freely. He even sent the children away just to maintain her privacy. The girl wonders where he took them and he explains they are on a trip to the amusement park. His company is covering all the expenses. Olivia is touched by his kindness and praises him. The man wasn't expecting her praise, but it makes him smug. The two begin to look at the records, and Damien notices her parents' names are missing. He is surprised because she had many medical checkups when she was younger. Olivia still remembers how painful each session was. Damien notices that the sponsors changed, but the medical staff still remained the same. He takes a look at the new sponsor's name, but immediately looks shocked. The new sponsor is Lowell Turner. Olivia has also noticed the name and links it to the priest who attacked them. Damien has also noticed something else. The man's last name is the same as Julia's. Our heroine is very confused, but Damien has someone who might know the whole story. Meanwhile, inside an empty church, a man in a hooded cloak is waiting. He takes it off and it turns out to be Lowell Turner. He is pleased because his revenge will soon begin. He feels pity for Olivia because she has no idea she is the bait. The man grabs his cross and prays his dear Julia will enjoy the show. Our male lead calls his informant and it turns out to be his father. James is glad his son has finally remembered him. Damien warns him to speak carefully because Olivia is here. His father says he is investigating the party ambush, but Damien is more interested in uncovering Turner's real identity. He mentions the man's role as the foster home sponsor and reveals he has the same last name as Julia. James has never met the man, but he knows Julia had an elder brother. Damien finally realizes that the attack was aimed at him. He still doesn't understand Turner's connection to the foster home. James has a wild theory. He believes all the sponsors before Turner were all hunters. Olivia has no idea what that means, and Damien explains they are a human agency that hunts werewolves. They were defeated years ago, but some hunters still exist. James calls them the wolves' worst enemies. Turner must have joined hands with them to get his revenge. Back to a few years ago, Turner isn't only hunting werewolves, the man has turned into one. Another hunter appears and admires his transformation. Lowell isn't pleased. He came here to hunt werewolves, not to turn into one. The hunter fires a warning shot at him and claims this is the price he has to pay. If he wants to hunt the monsters, he has to become one. Well, it works, and Turner indeed becomes stronger. The hunters visit another wolf's lair, but find them all dead. The leader is disappointed about wasting another bait. Turner has never heard the term, so the leader explains. To hunt the werewolves, the hunters need two things: a weapon to kill the beast and a bait to lure them out. The baits are people with special scents that can attract the alphas and even heal their wounds. Once the alphas taste their blood, they become crazy and can even kill themselves just to get the bait. Turner becomes dizzy when the man says the bait always ends up dead. Even worse, the leader admits the baits weren't born this way. The hospitals around them are all owned by the hunters. They target young children and plant the drug into their vaccinations. Turner is horrified and remembers his little sister. Julia had also taken a vaccination. The man goes crazy and his claws immediately come out. He blames the hunters for ruining his sister's life. The next time we see Turner, he is standing in the midst of dead bodies. The man is ready to become a monster just to get revenge for his sister. Damien is still on the call. He had always thought the hunter agency was wiped out by his father. James reveals that the werewolves only stole the credit. Everything was destroyed when they arrived at the agency. The incident had happened 5 years ago, and that is when Turner became the sponsor. The men are sure that the foster center Olivia grew up in was just a facility used to cultivate baits. Their conclusion leaves the girl speechless and terrified. Olivia is still in shock. She refuses to believe she is just a bait used to lure werewolves. James reminds her of her special ability to heal Damien, but his son still doubts the truth. He wonders why the hunters left Olivia alone. His father is sure the curse might have been hidden before then. He thinks it began to work after her first meeting with Damien. Back then, the girl had felt attracted to him in a way she couldn't explain. Our heroine suddenly looks terrified as she realizes there were always signs. She thinks about her sick daughter and suddenly drops the cup she is holding. It shatters to pieces just like her broken heart. Olivia still has some hope and asks if the curse will affect the baby if the bait becomes pregnant. James doesn't want to admit it, but the poison in her body will likely harm the baby. Olivia's heart is destroyed and she doesn't even feel the pain when she places her hands on the glass shards. Damien notices her state and quickly pulls her away. The girl is heartbroken as she realizes her daughter was never sick of some disease. She was poisoned because of her. She shoves Damien away and immediately runs outside. Olivia is focused on running away and doesn't even notice the blood on her face. Damien chases after her, worried about her injured hands. The girl doesn't care about that and says it won't kill her. She looks so broken and it upsets Damien. He reminds her of their promise to never hide their feelings from each other. She had pulled him out of the darkness and now it is his turn to help her. The man begs her to lean on him. Olivia finally opens up and regrets being Luna's mother. The child could have had a healthy life, but because of her, she became a sick person. She pushes Damien's hand away and refuses his help. She believes her love only brings pain to the people she cares about. Damien is upset and hugs her tightly. He reminds her none of this is her fault. The only people they should blame are the hunters who used her as an experiment. He begs her not to give up and reminds her of everything she has done for Luna. She loves her child more than anyone ever will. Our heroine thinks about her little baby and knows she loves her girl. She is willing to do anything for her daughter. Damien pleads with her not to push them away and vows to break the horrible curse. The two return home, and Damien advises his beloved to get some rest. He stands outside her room and blames himself. Instead of making her happy, he only brought her more pain. The man is so focused on breaking the curse and doesn't notice the door behind him opening. Little Luna steps out, all worried about her mother. She has never seen her look so empty. Damien stares at the little girl and makes up his mind. He wants to make Olivia happy, even if it is just for a brief moment. He asks Luna for some help, and we are left wondering what the two are planning. Damien shows off his cooking skills to Luna and calls his dish the pepperoni field. The girl has no idea what a field is, so he explains the meaning. Now it is Luna's turn to be excited. Her eyes are full of stars as she imagines a field filled with pepperoni. The man wonders why she likes it, and she reveals it is her mother's favorite. She reminds Damien of their plan to cook dinner for Olivia. Let's travel back to 30 minutes ago. Damien's ultimate plan to make Olivia happy is to cook a special meal for her. He asks for Luna's help, but the girl takes a long time thinking. Damien is afraid the child doesn't want to spend time with him. He is happy when she agrees with a huge smile. He sends her off to stall Olivia and reminds her to keep it a secret. Luna happily agrees. Back to the present, Damien prays his cooking skills can cheer up Olivia. The two cooks decide to have a heart-to-heart. Luna asks about his medicine, but he says he isn't taking it. She thinks he is better, but he explains his illness has no cure. The girl suddenly looks worried. She knows she might not get better and wonders if she can become a boss like Damien and have friends. The man encourages her and says she might even have more friends than him. The girl doubts him, but he reminds her she has people who love her, and they will help her achieve her dreams. He looks a little sad as he admits he had no one. The child is now eager to know if things have changed. She asks 1,000 questions, but Damien tries to avoid answering. The girl finally asks if he loves her mother. The man is nervous, but still confesses his feelings for Olivia. He tells Luna he also wants to be close to her. The child thinks they are already close because they went to the amusement park together. The reply makes the man blush, and he tells her he is very happy. The child notices his red face and calls him a pepperoni. Our heroine is finally allowed outside, and she is impressed to see their meal. Damien tries to give the credit to Luna, but the girl exposes him. She tells Olivia it was his idea to cheer her up, and she only helped him. Her mother thanks her and rubs her little head. The girl introduces their pepperoni-filled dish to her mother, while Damien pulls out her chair. He offers to feed her because of her injury, but she turns him down. Olivia is glad to see people who love her and knows she can't be sad. She has to be strong and protect her daughter. Well, the child is after her life. She suddenly asks when the couple are getting married. The two have similar shocked looks on their faces. Olivia finally recovers and explains it isn't an easy decision. Luna throws Damien under the bus and repeats his speech about cheering on the people you love. Olivia glances at the man with a smile, and he immediately turns red. He asks little Luna to wait until he can propose to her mother. He is afraid she might refuse if he doesn't propose properly. Our girl's face is completely red, and she tries to distract everyone by talking about the pizza. Little Luna waits for her mother to take a bite and cheers when she calls it delicious. The two cooks share a high five. Olivia watches them with a smile. She thought the day would be terrible, but now she is so happy. She prays the happiness won't end, but she spoke too soon. A man arrives with a letter for Damien, and he takes a look. He suddenly hands it over to Olivia and says she has to see it. The girl takes a glance and looks terrified. It is an obituary for Max. Olivia remembers the charity event. The invitations were sent by Max, but the man never showed up. She had called him and even sent Damien to search his house, but she still couldn't find him. Now she wonders if that priest had done something to him. The girl is trembling so bad that Damien has to support her. He reminds her the invitation might not be real. He finds it suspicious since the funeral is being held at that church. Olivia realizes it might be a trap. Damien also thinks so because the funeral is being held on the same day as the family heads meeting. He suspects that Turner might have joined hands with them. Olivia can't understand why he would work with the werewolves when he hates them. Damien explains that making the werewolves fight each other is the best way to get rid of them. The girl is furious, especially since the man dared to joke around with Max's life. She decides to attend the funeral. Her man is unwilling and reminds her it might be a trap. She thinks having a plan is enough, but Damien says it is too dangerous. Olivia tells him she is tired of running and being used. She doesn't want anyone else to end up like her daughter. Damien is amazed by his woman's bravery and holds her hands. He promises to face the fight with her. The girl is happy and thanks him for his support. She is done living in fear and now wants to protect the people she loves. Damien tells his men he will be attending the family heads meeting. Aiden wonders why he is walking into a trap without a backup plan. His boss says they are here to create that plan. He has also decided to shut down the project that was using Olivia's ability to form a new drug. He thinks abusing her powers makes them the same as those hunters. Aiden is confused because nothing seems to be going the way he wants. He turns to Russell and asks why he is silent when he is supposed to be yelling. Russell imitates how his past self would have reacted. He would have slammed the table and reminded Damien about his brother and Terracure. They are the only leverage he has over the family heads, but the new Russell has no plans to say anything. Once it comes to Olivia, his boss totally loses his head. Damien doesn't want to admit his friend is right, and the man flares up. He reminds his boss of his plan to imprint on Olivia. Aiden has no idea about this and quickly gives up on talking to Damien. Russell is impressed by his sudden switch, and he says he isn't stupid enough to fight a losing battle. Somehow, Russell translates that into the man calling him stupid. Meanwhile, our male lead seems to have found a clue. He remembers his father as an alpha, but he was never affected by Julia or Olivia. He stops the two men who are about to strangle each other and says he has an idea. The men are curious, and he believes this might be the only way to stop everything. The day of the meeting finally arrives, and our male lead visits Terracure. The rest of the family heads are already waiting, and he claims the main seat. He smirks and orders them to begin the meeting. Suddenly, someone swings a club filled with nails on his head. Damien manages to escape and questions the man. The werewolf doesn't reply, but instead hands him a paper. He calls it an agreement, but it is basically robbery. He wants Damien to hand over Terracure, including the formula for ISP. and remove his Brown family from everything. He tries to threaten our male lead with his brother and reveals Silas is injured. Damien approaches the paper and the man starts to gloat. He is shocked when the boy rips the document apart. Damien looks down on the agreement and chooses to settle things the werewolf way. He challenges the man to a fight. Meanwhile, our girl finally arrives at the church. Our male lead is really impressive. Some minutes have barely passed, but he has already defeated most of the wolves. He even has the strength to mock them. The rest of the wolves murmur, wondering how his powers returned. They start to believe he really has a secret weapon. The leader of the rebellion trembles, afraid they might lose both Silas and Terracure. He calls Damien a monster, probably forgetting they are the same breed. Just when he thinks all hope is lost, he receives a call from Turner. The man immediately becomes smug and tells Damien the deal is over. He claims to have found a more tempting offer. Our male lead is curious, but the leader refuses to say more. He drags Silas away and orders the rest of the wolves to attack Damien. Olivia steps into the church, and just as they guessed, it is a trap. She sees Turner standing next to a coffin. The man pats the casket and mourns Max, saying he never got to see the woman he loves. He suddenly becomes hostile and says the boy wouldn't want to see the girlfriend of the monster who killed him. Olivia didn't expect him to show his hatred so openly. The man becomes gossipy and asks why she walked into his trap. The girl says she has to see the truth for herself and say goodbye to Max. She opens the casket, but it is empty. Olivia sighs and wonders why Turner called her over. The man calls her kind and asks her to join hands with him to punish the wolves. He tries to brainwash the girl, claiming that Damien doesn't love her. He says the man is only drawn to her because she is a bait. His words seem convincing, but Olivia refuses to believe him. Turner shows her his bite mark. He wants her to believe the werewolves are just monsters who kill humans or turn them into their slaves. He calls them a curse to humanity and thinks they have to be stopped before they destroy the world. He mentions her sick daughter and blames the werewolves for ruining their lives. He should never have mentioned her daughter because now the woman is furious. She blames the hunters for ruining her life and claims the werewolves were the ones who helped her fix everything. She accuses Turner of using and deceiving people. He is the monster here, and she vows never to support him. She begs him to stop his revenge if he truly cares about Julia. The man suddenly smirks. He attacks her and places a cloth over her nose. Our heroine struggles, but the drug soon kicks in. Turner holds the limp woman and reveals he gave up on being human a long time ago. Olivia wakes up only to find herself tied to a chair. She has no idea where she is. Turner is behind her, and he praises himself for saving her the best seat. The girl turns around and sees some men approaching. The werewolves announce that they have bound Damien and brought Silas over. Olivia recognizes the boy's terrified face. The wolf leader asks him to hand over the girl, but Turner claims a guest is missing. The rest of the men are confused, but just then Damien arrives. The man smiles like a demon and wonders if they are all waiting for him. Damien arrives and asks if they are all waiting for him. The wolf leader is shocked while Turner mocks their abilities. He already knew Damien would escape because the man is the most powerful alpha. Our male lead challenges the priest, and the man admits it was all his plan. For some reason, the werewolf leader thinks the two are working together to set them up. Turner smirks and takes out his gun. He says he doesn't support anyone. The werewolves are smug because they believe the gun can't harm them. The priest changes his target, pointing the gun at Olivia's head. He warns Damien to stay away or he will pull the trigger. Our male lead glares at the priest, but the man uses the chance to shoot him. Olivia cries in fear while Turner begins to laugh. The bullets aren't ordinary, and he is sure Damien is in a lot of pain. The priest grabs Olivia, ordering her to use her powers to save her man. He shoves her to Damien and waits eagerly for her powers to be revealed. But the man is bound to be disappointed. Our male lead announces that the curse has been broken. The priest refuses to believe them, but our couple really managed to find a way. Let's go back to the day Damien cooked his special dinner. Olivia praises his cooking skills, and the man says he has a lot of experience. She wonders just how old he is. The man explains that werewolves live 3 times longer than humans. Olivia takes a guess and thinks he is 90. Damien immediately looks nervous, afraid his lover wouldn't like him anymore. The girl says she still wants him, and the man feels relieved. He suddenly becomes serious as he mentions his idea to her. He explains that werewolves usually imprint on their mates. It is an ancient magic that only happens once in a lifetime and binds 2 souls together through life and death. The imprinting focuses on one person, and Olivia notices it is the opposite of her curse. Damien thinks this might be the only way to break the curse. He got the idea since his father, who had imprinted on his mother, didn't react to Olivia's ability. Back at the warehouse, Turner refuses to believe that imprinting can cancel out the bait's power. The werewolves are convinced when they see Damien still bleeding. The alpha mocks Turner for only using his werewolf's power to kill. The other wolves also urge the priest to do something. Turner's plan was to use Olivia to kill the werewolves, but now he changes his mind. He wants to kill the girl so Damien will die after losing his mate. Our male lead protects his woman and tells the man to face him, but Turner refuses to change his mind. Julia had died because she had disobeyed his plans. She had made a stupid choice, just like Olivia. He blames the girl for not listening to him, but Olivia has no regrets. The couple hug each other tightly as they prepare to meet their end. Turner is annoyed by her foolish decision and wishes her goodbye. The man immediately pulls the trigger. Turner pulls the trigger and our girl closes her eyes, expecting the worst. She is confused when nothing happens and opens her eyes to see someone stopping Turner. What is more shocking is that Silas is the one who saved them. The priest is also stunned and questions the boy. Silas is furious when he realizes he has been used by a hunter. He pushes the gun away and punches Turner's annoying face. Meanwhile, the gun chooses a new owner and falls at Olivia's feet. The men are still fighting. Turner tries to twist the truth again, but Silas stops him. He says Damien already explained everything. Back at Terracure, Damien had figured out that the caller was Turner. He exposed the man's identity as a hunter and revealed his plan to destroy the werewolves using Olivia. Silas had refused to accept the truth and claimed the hunters were destroyed years ago. Damien didn't try to convince the stubborn man, but just stated that he had destroyed Olivia's powers. He threatened the men to stay away from her, or he would stop producing ISP. We return to the present, and Damien advises Turner to give up, because his revenge is over. The man refuses to accept his defeat and keeps trembling. He blames the werewolves for ruining his plan and tries to attack. He doesn't do much because Silas sends him flying with a single kick. He exposes the man's other identity as a werewolf and calls him pathetic. Turner becomes desperate. He shows off Damien's wounds and tries to convince Silas he is still useful. The werewolf grabs his neck and says he can destroy his brother alone. He tosses the man to the floor and Turner struggles to breathe. He hears someone approaching, but when he looks up, Olivia is pointing the gun at his head. The man tries to be manipulative and says pulling the trigger will make her one of the monsters. He blames himself for ruining her daughter's health. Olivia also thinks he is guilty. Because of him, Luna suffered, and our heroine spent every night blaming herself. The girl knows killing him will make her feel good, but she refuses to take his life. His death wouldn't undo all her daughter's suffering. She calls him a monster, but Turner tries to defend himself. Olivia interrupts him and explains he is the one hurting people. He tried to use her as bait, just like those hunters did to Julia. His revenge is meaningless. Turner is shocked and remembers his beautiful sister. He stares at his hands, but they have turned into claws. The man finally realizes his mistake, but he can't handle the pain. He ends up taking his own life. Damien quickly covers his beloved's eyes, not allowing her to witness the man's terrible death. He only lets her go when everything is cleared and tells her it is all over. The girl is worried about the research because her powers are gone. The man says it is the werewolf's problem to solve. He just wants her to be happy with Luna. Damien thanks her for holding on and trusting him through everything. Olivia smiles because she will always trust him. The two share a happy hug as she calls him her other half. Inside a beautiful resort, Papa James is smoking a cigar and reading the newspaper. The covers are all talking about Olivia and Damien's private wedding. Suddenly, Luna appears screaming about a bad smell. Papa James quickly hides his cigar and pretends to know nothing when the girl says she smells a burning scent. Russell arrives then and saves the man, calling Luna away to find Minson. The girl leaves and Russell begins to gossip. He is surprised to see the old man here. He almost fainted when he heard the man gave his blessings for this marriage. He thinks James changed his mind because Damien broke Olivia's curse, but that isn't the reason. James has noticed how bright and lovely Luna is. He admires the way Olivia raised her child and admits she did better than him. The proud papa is glad to see his son get married and decides to quit smoking. Russell jokes about the man living longer, and James admits he wants to see what happens next. Our couple are finally getting married. Olivia looks gorgeous, but Damien can tell she is very nervous. The girl admits that everything still feels like a dream. Her husband remembers the dream he once had about her. He was walking through the woods when he saw her lying under a tree with her eyes closed. The girl was so beautiful, and he knew then that he wanted to protect her forever. His sweet words make the girl happy, but they are interrupted by a cheerful Luna. She hands over her mother's bouquet, which she had prepared with Damien. Olivia is touched and wonders when the two planned this. Her husband suddenly grabs her hand and makes a vow. He knows their days might be tough, but he promises to stay by her side through it all. He looks dashing as he asks for her permission to devote the rest of his life to her. The girl is surprised and smiles happily as she agrees to his request. The crowd cheers, and even Papa James can't hide his smile. The priest begins the wedding speech, and our heroine is full of happiness. After leaving the warehouse that day, the couple had talked about their future. Damien had wanted to complete his drug and become a full human, but she had stopped him. She didn't want him to hide his true nature just because of her. As the two share their vows, she recalls how hard it was for Damien to show his true self. From now on, she will teach him not to hide from the people he loves. Olivia knows they aren't perfect. Even as she kisses him, she acknowledges that perfection doesn't exist. Maybe they shouldn't call themselves imperfect either. Meanwhile, Minsoon proudly offers to share a dance with Russell, almost startling the poor man. He accepts her request and the two head off to dance. Right now, everyone is just existing in time, spending the days loving each other. We take a sneaky look at our couple's life 9 months later. Olivia is on a phone call with Max, and he has found 80% of the missing people. He claims it was all because of Terracure, but Olivia reveals her husband has been praising him. Max isn't happy to receive compliments from the man because he is now his boss. The two talk about the new drug and its progress. Silas's beta turned out to be useful for the research. Tommy is so excited and vows to spend Christmas as a human. Just then, Max hears a loud yell through the phone and immediately looks worried. We see our girl holding her aching butt because she just fell from the stairs. And she explains that it is Luna's first day of school, so the house is full of chaos. Max decides to let her go, and she rushes to her daughter's side. The woman offers to walk Luna to school, but the girl quickly refuses. She has been waiting all her life to ride the school bus. Our heroine starts bawling as she recites the popular "Moms unable to part with their children" speech. Damien hugs his wife before she cries her heart out. He reminds her of the trust they shared and asks her to trust Luna too. Olivia is grumpy because they all seem to be ganging up on her. She finally sighs and agrees to let the girl go, wishing her a great day at school. Luna smiles so widely we see all her teeth. The girl rushes off to her future while our couple watches from behind. They are ready to begin a new chapter of their story. And with this beautiful story comes to an end. Did you enjoy it? Then rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 below. Until next time, ciao.